Fill her up.
You're listening to the Gas Digital Network.
Yeah, I know. Because I can't get right. This is cutthroat. This Burns has words pop from a snub nose. This Kurt Metzger and not give a fuck mode. Because I can't get right. Because I can't get right. Yeah, you're listening to Can't Get Right.
God, the show should be called All the Better Conversations Happen When It's Not Being Recorded. The show. That would be a good name for the show. Last week, Robbie, I had Suba on. You know Suba?
I like Suba, sure.
Yeah. She used to do Race Wars back in the day. And then I had to cut the fucking recording and have a whole separate conversation come. I mean, like, it's almost like robbing people of, but that's how it is. I don't know what to tell everybody. You can't, like, there's all this shit where you literally can't have the most interesting parts recorded. I
just say whatever and don't have a career. That's my approach. So, you know.
Oh, I don't even mean just, I don't give a shit about like the whatever, you know, fucking, I don't even use the word canceling, but you know what I'm talking. I don't give a shit about that. I've already been through that shit. I don't know. You have to worry about much more than that now. You have to worry like people can take your fucking ability to do banking and shit away. Like you can be made into the original, what the word, you know what outlaw, you know where the word outlaw came from?
Yeah, I'm going to get some education here.
I just watched it. I mean, I'm not like a scholar of this, but I was just watching something. It's like some Germanic tribe thing in like Roman fall of Rome times. And basically, once you're declared outlaw, it simply means you're dead to the law. So you're considered, like if you're married, they'll call your wife a widow. You have no protection under the law. And then if anybody's got a grudge or wants to do whatever the fuck they want to you, you don't exist, so it's fine. And you're outside the protection of the law. You're an outlaw. It was the original being canceled. Right. That's what it was. And so that's like, you know, then I don't know. I always thought of it as a thing of like, you know, Robin Hood or whatever, but it's like the thing of, it is a thing of nothing to lose. So you got to go for it. Kind of, I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean criminal. It means you don't have the protection of anything. And we're going to have that more and more as time goes on. And I have people, like I said, I don't even like to say the fucking word. That even, you know, the cancel, the new C word. I don't even like to say it because it's such a fucking buzzword. It's like a new name for a thing that's been around forever, which is sanctions and embargoes, right?
You know what I'm really creeped out by, and I got to make this adjustment. I'm super disorganized. I write all my comedy in Google Docs. And it's been a good tool because like even before shows, I'll write set lists. So if I come back to a city, I can just look up my set list, see the jokes I did last time. Like, and I write notes for all, like literally everything's in there, and I'm disorganized. The search feature makes it really easy to check things. Google Docs can now censor. I don't think they're doing it yet, but they can censor what's in your folders if it violates whatever fucking policies they have. So like I've had,
wow. Yeah, I heard that.
No, I think that's like a new, I don't think it's been enforced yet, but I think it now exists on the books. Like, I don't think it's been enforced, but I think it exists.
Wait, Mike, did I introduce Robbie or not? I can't remember. Did I say Robbie Bernstein's here on the show?
No, I just hopped right in. I couldn't hold back.
Wow.
We started talking censorship, and I was like, I'm jumping right in.
I know, because we were talking about some other thing, and then it got into that. And
we did 45 minutes before the show started, so I felt like I'd been introduced.
I got, because some motherfucker, I posted me and Kyle Dunnigan do this Stallone thing, you know, this
stuff's great. All that stuff's great.
Well, so I posted, Frank Stallone did a duet, or like he sent in a recording to do a duet. So I posted on there, and I'll get randomly on Twitter now. This is why I don't like.
Is he actually a good singer, Frank Stallone?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he can sing. And,
okay.
And so I said, what is this? You complain about canceling? And I'm like, what? And then this guy was like, yeah, because that's what you fucking, like, I don't know what they're talking about. I don't even like to say the word itself because I hate using the word from the shitheads who make these fucking.
You feel like you're bringing it into reality. It's going to manifest.
Yeah, I don't like to manifest drag queen language into reality. So, but then I realized this is somebody who's got to grow. Like, there's a thing now where people are mad that you're bringing it up. And I've had this said to me I think unfairly, because no, I was actually posting some comedy I made that's not complaining about. You're the one that brought this, not you, but this guy, I think a guy, who knows, brought this up as if like that's what I talk about nonstop. No, I just like to make jokes. Like, you're bringing it up, man. And also, why would you be mad if I did complain about it? Because it's a thing that sucks. Should I not complain about things that suck? And it's like some weird. And then I realize this is why I like try to avoid Twitter at all costs. Is this person? I don't know that they're sincere or not. It's not their real name. Could easily be some weird AstroTurf thing. There's a bunch of people on Twitter that just do this for a living, that shill for a living, in bizarre ways. You know, like, did you ever hear about that guy Brooklyn Dad Defiant?
No.
He would tweet about how great during the election, how great Biden and Kamala Harris are. He's like a leftist in Brooklyn, but who loves Biden. And like, if you ask me, the DNC, and it's not like, doesn't sound like the shit that leftists would say, or Bernie bros or whatever. It sounded like paid advertising, and that's exactly what it is. It came out that this guy gets paid. In fact, I had a person, this maniac, back when it was called call out culture. This chick's name was Sadie Doyle. She was in the leaked Hillary emails. As
what?
One of Hillary's fucking shills to spread. Remember Bernie bros, the term about how Bernie Sanders supporters were toxic frat boys that are racist and hate women? And I was like, that's weird. I'm not a Bernie bro, by the way, or a Bernie supporter. I thought he was weak. I could see a mile away he was unfit to lead anything. But they made this thing out, oh, you hate women. They did it to Bernie. They said he hates women and all that shit. And that's a coordinated astroturfing thing, and it came out in the leaks of Hillary's emails. That wasn't even a particularly well documented or controversial thing. That's what they all do. They hire these shills to say this shit, and then it's there to push your emotional buttons. So you go, well, that's not fair. And it's literally completely made to like, it's amazing. Like every time I'm like, oh, I'm getting suckered again.
I think, by the way, on that with the Hillary, and I think the term you just used was astroturfing. When they went nuts at Trump and all of the Russia Facebook influence, no one ever put out a comparative study of, well, how much Saudi Arabia influence was there for Clinton? How much foreign influence? Right. Like, it's not like the Russians were the only, even if, let's say, Russia put $100 million, which they did into a coordinated Facebook campaign for Trump. Like, even if that was true, well, how much money was there for Clinton from other governments? And by the way, and the other thing you were saying of like where they tell you, hey, why are you mentioning cancel culture?
Which I didn't. I want to make it clear. Never did. Go ahead.
But I find very often they'll bring up a topic and then they'll get upset at you for like acknowledging the importance of the topic, but taking the other side. Like kind of happened with Black Lives Matter, where, you know, they'll make a big stink out of Black Lives Matter. You go, wait a second. I don't know if maybe we should go with all lives matter. They go, well, you're racist because you're not well, you brought up this topic. You brought up the topic of that. We've got an issue of cops killing people. And is the slogan of Black Lives Matter the best way to solve it?
Right. Do you know why that's on purpose? So yeah,
of course.
So like, you know, bickering about which of me and Shirai, when that first came out of Race Wars, we want to sell No Lives Matter shirts, but I'm sure somebody has that joke. We never did it, but that's I was watching the guy from Brand Nubian, the guy who was on Oz that they killed with eggs. I'm forgetting his name. He's a rapper. I see him on he's always on DJ Vlad. I watch DJ Vlad sometimes, and
I never saw. How do you kill a dude with eggs?
If they're allergic, he was Supreme Allah.
Okay.
The guy who played Supreme Allah in Oz, and I'm blanking on his fucking name, but he was from Brand Nubian. He's a rapper, and he's pretty like almost. He's not Black Israelite, but he's like 5%er in real life. And he was Vlad asked him about BLM, and he goes, I don't give a shit about that. Vlad's like, what? Vlad's like a, you could tell he's a big hip hop fan. Lord Jamar. Godfrey talks to him all the time. I was asking Godfrey if I get Lord Jamar on. God would love to talk to him. Because Lord Jamar is like a militant, probably black nationalist, I would say. Or like one of the Israelites that you might know from working near the cellar that me and Shirai had on our show, where they're like, the teachings are like, oh, well, you know, you're the devil, but they're cool. The guys, they weren't in robes yelling in the street. They're just like, these are like real religions now, these nonsense. But Lord Jamar is not for BLM, and Vlad asked why. He goes, because that didn't come from us. That was handed to us by some, and that's exactly what BLM is. That was a top down. The chick that founded it, who's in a fucking mansion now, the whole idea behind it, the same as, I was just saying this with Sue, the same as Believe Women. She started defending Suba was defending the idea of, she goes, well, believe all women. Sure. I go, Suba, it's actually believe women, not believe all women. And you're still endorsing it. And you think that nonsense phrase is what it is. That's on purpose. That's so if you're a thinking person, you go, because when I first heard Black Lives Matter, I wasn't like mad because I was like, no, they don't. I was like, why would you say that to me as if I was declaring that they didn't matter? Like, I didn't understand why I'm being confronted, me, the reader. And there is a thing that you're supposed to do is go, no, you're supposed to have a little bit of humility and understand, well, yeah, there's a lot of cathartic release of emotion that needs to be taken out on you. And that's how you know a thing's bullshit, when it's about catharsis and your fucking emotions and not doing anything. BLM is all about, I'm angry, I'm going to burn some. She actually argued to me, because I asked her why January 6th was so fucking awful, but all the people getting their shit burned down. The little people. This black lady I see crying on TV because they burned her fucking store down. Why should I care more about January, like, be more afraid of those people than the other people? She literally told me it's because, well, that's an insurrection, them taking a shit in Pelosi's desk, because that was based on a lie. And then she went on to tell me why the BLM fires are based on, she's naming all these real issues, and not being served by your leaders. All this, and I go, oh, so that's why they had an insurrection? She goes, no, is that? I'm like, yeah, that's what an insurrection is. I'm not saying they're good or bad. That's what an insurrection is. These people are exactly trained to not see those parallels between the two obvious things that are the same fucking thing. That's what the idea of, you're racist if you say it, but it's actually literally good, and not racist if I say race things to you. You know, that little principle of fucking that trickled down out of academia down to everybody, and it still doesn't add up. This is to train people. These are things designed to help people do doublethink, like out of that fucking book. And it's a coalition of, it's not just academics, it's also our own fucking government, the CIA. They have a history of doing this. That's what all COINTELPRO was in the 60s. All the shit with the Black Panthers. They did with, Malcolm X. I don't think the FBI murdered him like that they did Fred Hampton, but they did know that the Nation of Islam was going to murder him and not do anything because they didn't like. And you know why he had to go? Because that's the period where Malcolm X is saying, hey, we can all get along. Not his racist black guy period. You're fine, Malcolm X. When you come back and you go, hey, you know what? I realize there's no skin color is good or bad, and that's when you got to go, because then you can't control the prison when that happens. So that's all. The fact that it's divisive is by design. It's so that anybody who's not like a simpering, like a bottom. That's because I think there's a lot of weird sexual shit to this too. You'll notice, well, especially with lockdown people, where they're like, yes, lock us down, daddy. We should be locked down. Oh, Omicron, 6 more weeks of lockdown. We deserve it. There's a masochist thing where you were in New York, right?
I moved to Connecticut, but I was in New York. Yeah.
I mean, okay, Connecticut.
Same idea.
You must see this fucking weird, like how only like rich guys like to get dominated by dominatrixes. We had a girl on that did that on our show, Raise Words, and Sherrod goes, she says, I don't know why. She's like, white men always wanted. He goes, yeah, but I mean, those are like CEOs. Like, I doubt the fry cooks want you to come over and talk down to them, right? Like, there's something about upper class elites where they get a sexual, deep down, some weird thing about, oh, I'm so bad, and like, lock us down, we deserve it. Like, there's this like weird fucking thing to it. I don't know what it is, dude. I don't know if it's like guilt.
No, I think it's a little bit of, firstly, this isn't everybody. It's not like every rich person has that, but I think the people that do, I think it's a little bit of kind of a balancing act where they have a guilt for how good their life is. So it's like a controlled way for them to kind of, like you said, be the bottom or have someone kind of bitch them out, so that when they get back into life and they're kind of the man and controlling of everything else, feels a little bit more balanced in their brain. Yeah,
there is some kind of weird, overall, outside of politics, there's some weird equilibrium thing that has to happen with stuff, I notice.
And I also think that there's a certain amount of just wealth that we have. I talked about this when it comes to global warming. I think part of why people believe it's like a Stockholm syndrome type thing. People want to feel like we're in more control than we are. And I also think people have like a degree of like I grew up pretty religious Jewish. I think you had, I forget what.
Were you like Ari Shafir? Like, did you go to Orthodox?
Yeah.
You were at the yeshiva and all, yeshiva?
Yeah, and I kept with it a little longer than he did, but I think,
Really?
but I think with like religion's got a built-in guilt mechanism, and I think the environmentalism's a little bit of that as well. That because like we like to cry poor, the reality is technology is, at least in America, like even your poor people, they probably have a car, they probably got a TV, they probably got heat and electricity.
Yes, of course.
There's a relative.
Of course, we have plenty of crap.
Right.
The things that are luxury items.
Right.
Are
then yes.
Healthcare, a fucking house.
Right.
No, that's the big trick. The reason that those things are plentiful is because some asshole got a deal on a bunch of beef or a bunch of chips or whatever that week.
But even if you looked comparatively to 30 years ago, your access to healthcare and homes have to be greater than they were 30 years ago. I would have to assume.
Why
There's
would
no
you
way.
assume that? Do you know how high with access to everything? Access to everything was basically in 1970. I just watched a video about it on is it? I want to say Jake Tran. There's a kid, Jake Tran, makes great documentaries. But anyway, 1971 is when the wealth gap. Everybody after World War II was going up at the same rate in income until 1971, and that's the year that they ended the Bretton Woods fucking agreement with gold and Nixon. Remember, England and France wanted their gold back, and Nixon, no, you can't have it. We're just keeping it, and then that's what inflation does. It steals from the people. So people that earn wages, and that's where their wealth is tied up, you get poorer even if you have fucking cash to buy crap. The people that are richer that own stuff, well, they get way richer because that becomes even more valuable once the money's based on. So when people are like, Bitcoin's imaginary, that's what I always said until I learned how real fucking money works. Right. And I went, oh my God. Like, oh, now I get Bitcoin. Look up how your fucking money works. Right. And so that was the beginning. And the reason they did that was we had all these fucking wars to pay for when, by the way, technically, we haven't been to war since World War II. That was the last war we fought on the books. If you went by legal definition, we haven't been in a war. But now we have 1 million everywhere. And why do we have those fucking things? Because all that crap, you can't get it without constant wars, and somebody has to be the meat for the machine. And as your nation gets wealthier, hopefully it's less of your own citizens. But guess what? It's going to go back to a lot of our own citizens now because I think we've kind of dried up. I think we've dried up a lot of, Afghanistan was a big one. I mean, they got their raise, the Pentagon. They get it no matter what. Right. But, like, I was just talking to somebody about, to Ryan about this because Ryan's from Canada. Okay, and I had a guy who's right wing from UK on a couple weeks ago. His name's Leo Kerrys. He's on Podcast of the Lotus Eaters, which was Sargon of Akkad. If you ever saw that guy, he's a comic that I guess had this shit happen to him there because he had hit an hour called Right Wing Comic, and he said to me while we were talking, the whole first part, all this you need low taxes, low government, all the shit that you would hear from somebody right wing, right? Okay. But I always do this if somebody's from the UK and they're telling me, I go, okay. I asked him if he knew about surprise billing. You know what surprise billing is?
Lay it on me.
Well, this never happened to me, by the way. But
you're talking about when you go to a hospital and then you get a bill later? Dude, I get that shit all the time. I just had a really bad one. Can I tell you a bad one?
Yes,
Such a fucking scam. And they get you so good with this bullshit. COVID testing is supposed to be like free, and by free, it's
Jen
like
Psaki said I'll get reimbursed.
Right. It's billed. It's essentially billed to your insurance, and if you don't have insurance, government's picking up the tab.
Right.
Now in my town, I've got multiple options for. I can go to the CVS. Takes 3 days. I can go to this medical center. There's 4 different places you can go to. One of them happens to be. I'm not gonna. Fuck it. I'll say the name. Docs Medical. Right.
Why should you not say that?
Because what I'm about to say, maybe, I don't know. Anyways,
they're called docs. That's hilarious.
DOCS, right?
It's like doxing. Like docs.
Oh yeah,
ironically named.
I don't know if you've ever gone somewhere for a COVID test, but it is probably the best place to get COVID. The COVID testing never made any sense whatsoever. That you're supposed to stay away from other people, you're supposed to group outside or whatever, and then all of a sudden you show up to a testing center and it's everyone else who thinks they have COVID, and then they keep you in rooms there. It's not even like they get you out of rooms within 15 minutes so you wouldn't catch it. They don't have better filtration. They don't have open windows. So I'm just saying.
I was tested at the Joe Rogan show, so it was not like that.
Oh, so if you ever want the experience of going to a testing site,
I went to a site in LA. I thought I was vaxxed. I thought I had it. I was hoping I had it because I had the feeling of being at the end of a flu where it's not bad. And I was like, oh, maybe I caught it, but because I just got vaxxed, it's probably like not as bad. I'm like, that'd be great if it turned out I'd had it. And then I'm like super, because that's a better immunity than the vax is if you get it. And it was you can get other stuff. I forgot there's other flus and colds that you can get. So it was outside. I had to go stand in this weird thing and put it, and then I didn't get the results back until, if I'm not getting it back the same day, I'm like, when I wait till Monday to find, come on, man.
You're moving on with your life.
But wait, tell me about your surprise.
All right,
bill.
no. So this one, I've had a bunch of these. Okay, so I get the COVID test. They put them with insurance, and then I see like a month or 2 months later, either from the insurance reimbursement or a letter from them that they had a $200 new patient initiation fee. Now, at no point in time did I ever become a patient of theirs. I wasn't there to become a doxed patient. They offered a specific service. It's advertised as being free and covered by insurance. And then they created this fee. Now, here's the thing. They never told me I had this fee. I don't even remember receiving a bill for it. I'm never going to pay it. At some point, it's going to get handed over to a bill collector. It's going to affect my credit. It's going to sit there forever.
Oh, dude, you never have to pay a bill collector.
I'm never going to pay that. Dude, I have perfect credit with the exception of these bullshit. Like, I've been in doctor's offices where I go, do I owe you anything else? No. And then they send me something later down. Like, you can go, if I'm standing in front of you and I say, I'm good to pay my bill, what's my bill? And then you come up with something later, that's your fucking fault.
Well, legally, no. Now, they were going to pass a law. There's also a scenario. That's very interesting. I can't wait to, I want to tell Jimmy about it because I learned about this from him. I've never had that. I got minor surgery and they must have, and I had Writers Guild insurance, which I think is just good insurance because I've never gotten a surprise bill. Like, I was surprised that they paid for shit most of the time, honestly.
It's always the lab shit, dude. You've never had like some surprise blood work thing is like $1,000.
Yes, anesthesiologist if they go out of your network, because sometimes the place you're going could be shady and they get kickbacks going on purpose out of it. So you get months later, you can get some crazy bill after you thought it was covered. So they were going to make a law, not even to like do what it should have done, not even that much. It was a bipartisan bill to make it that when that happens, before you have to hear about it, the insurance company and the hospital or whoever has to try to work it out first before they bother you with it. That was all it was going to do.
Right.
It got killed. It was about to pass. It got killed by a Democrat, by the way, not by a Republican, by a fucking Democrat. All the things that the stupid Build Back Better with, they're going to be there's no drug price negotiations. You will be overcharged for fucking drugs. And that's how it's going to fucking be forever. Anyway, I brought what you just said. I brought that up to Leo Kearse, who had just got done with his free market. Not that I'm against the free market or whatever, but he said all the lines that you hear from someone who's like right libertarian. And I brought that up. I go, do you know about this surprise billing thing? That's what happens in America. He goes, oh, what? No, not healthcare. That's not that you just get that. His right wing, the right wing that they have there, it's not even a thing that's up for debate that you would never go through that. It's like, well, you don't pay for private cops, right? Or whatever the fuck. That's how insane America is. That I had a right wing guy who's like, you're a fucking, even their most condemned right winger, when they're blathering their talking points, thinks it's fucking insane how we do things here. You just got done telling me. And yet, how fucking programmed are people? You know what Kyle said to me? It still blows me away.
Right.
But he didn't mean this like it's a thing he thought of. It's a thing a lot of people say that he was just bringing up because people have said it. The old, what if a loved one needed to get in the hospital, I don't know, and they couldn't get a bed because someone chose not to be vaccinated and they were taking up a bed, clogging up the beds, and then you couldn't get it. And so my initial answer to him was like, okay, let's say you're vaccinated, but you fucking, or a heroin addict, or you've 20 other fucking things that are your fault.
Right.
2, what do they come and let you know why you can't have a bed? It's because, is that like a thing? What are you talking about? And then 3, which I didn't think of, somebody else mentioned to me, why aren't there more beds? It's an emergency. You would think, I mean, a bed can cost how much? No more than 3 EpiPens, right? I judge value in overpriced drugs.
Okay.
A bed's probably cheaper than 3 EpiPens, right? That's, you know how much EpiPens are? They're like $3,000 a pop. That's what we have to pay here. And every jagoff, Democrat and Republican, they're like, I don't know. What do you want, the government to run it? No, I want a conglomerate corporation with the power of a small government, but no constitution to run it. That's what I want. I want a surprise bill from a private company rather than big government. I mean, what are people talking about? These companies are the government now. All right, it's time for another break to tell you guys about rockauto.com. Are you an auto mechanic or a person with a car that knows how to fix your car? Are you one of the last of the do-it-yourself car guys in this crazy technological age and you actually build cars? Well, I take my hat off to you. And I suggest you go to rockauto.com, the online store with every auto part at the best prices. It's your one-stop shop for everything auto parts. Don't go to those stupid stores with markups and people with their ass crack hanging out. I don't know what goes on there. I don't go there too much. But I can tell you it's a lot easier to go to rockauto.com and find everything you need. No matter what your deal is, if you're a professional mechanic working on your own car, whatever, it don't matter. Everyone has access to the same incredible pricing at rockauto.com. So if you're a car guy, right now, go to rockauto.com. If you're a car girl, hey, go to rockauto.com. Check out all the parts available for your car. You're going to have a lot of fun looking at car parts because, you know, you're a car person, assuming, if you're going to rockauto.com. Once more, rockauto.com. No promo code needed. Their pricing is already that good. When you order, make sure to tell rockauto.com that you heard about them on Can't Get Right with me, Kurt Metzger. rockauto.com. Okay, let's get back to the show.
I agree with most of what you said in terms of surprise billing. The companies are the government, and everything that you said is a problem I agree with. I am kind of a free market guy, and I could give you some arguments for more of a free market of medicine, if that's of interest.
You ever go to another country where they said America handles it? I wish we did it how America does it, because I've been to many countries, never once met someone who was like, oh yeah, you guys are so much smarter with how you do it. They all go, what are you, fucking crazy? It's that crazy. It's that crazy.
Well, the only experience I had, and maybe this is, I once had, I had an injury in Israel, which has socialized medicine. And I thought the healthcare there was so bad. I was just like, I will deal with this injury.
Do they have a 1 or 2 tier system?
I was 18 when I was there. I ended up with yeah.
Well, this is what I'm asking, just because, like in England when I went there, because a lot of times people say Canada, and Canada, right, their system's not that great, even though the people who have it would not wish they had our system. People go,
I hate our system, by the way. It drives me nuts. Like, but I do think if you look at it, a lot of the issues are the government, like, laws in place, most specifically the license laws, which reduce competition, and then also the insurance itself is what drives up costs more than anything.
Well, I mean, that's,
and I could explain both.
Well, that's just one piece of the chain of grift that runs it. The bottom line is there's so much shit that has sprung up around, like, I mean, there's the industry is so big, you would be collapsing some major fucking sector, you know, because then they show how much we spend compared to other people on healthcare.
Right.
Like, it's such a major part of the economy. Like, as much as I would like to see all the people that run it just out of work, it probably would be a disaster to not have the bloated, insane system, because it's that entrenched.
I think that's a little bit of a broken windows fallacy. Yeah. And what I mean by that, so have you ever read, and I've not read the whole book, but it's a worthwhile read, Henry Hazlitt's Economics 1 Lesson?
Oh, obviously I have. No, why would I? No,
oh, okay.
I've never read that.
It's actually, listen, it gets boring, so I wouldn't recommend reading the whole thing, but if you read
it gets boring? I fell asleep as you told me the title. Henry Hazlitt's Economics for June. Anyway, go ahead.
There's like, if people have money gets spent, right?
Yeah, right. The velocity of money, is that what you're referring to?
I wouldn't necessarily call it the velocity of money. The broken windows fallacy, I might even not get this right, but sometimes you go, like, government, let's say they got an initiative to fix windows, and so you go, well, this is great. Look at all these people that get hired on a daily basis to fix windows. So by that logic, would it also be advantageous if we went out and broke windows so that people had something to fix?
I mean, I'm sure that happens in that program at some point.
Right, but
or even worse, you know what would happen? They wouldn't even bother to break the windows. They would still just get the money. This reminds me of a story somebody told me in DC. This guy that
by the way, I definitely am not explaining it right, but okay.
What you're talking about, because I know what you're talking about. It's that, like, that comes from something being big. So when I was a kid, they kept talking about we need to privatize everything, run it like a business. We got to run government like you run a business, and we did. It fucking sucks. It turns out the business they're in ain't the one that you wanted them to be in. And the business is booming. The business does great. Just because you're not doing great don't mean the business isn't working for somebody, because it fucking is. But so this guy tells me a story. This is a young guy. There's all these young people in DC. They didn't have hipsters there when Brooklyn had hipsters.
Right.
They had House of Cards larvae, I called them. There were people that House of Cards was out at the time when I was there, and they really admired that whole thing. Like, they really were like, yeah, you got to play the game, and that's cool. Like, and it's these type of people, young, ambitious people, right? And then you meet ones that were just jaded. They were already disgusted, and they're 27, and they're already like, I don't want to be working in this. So this guy worked with an environmental program that was collecting thermometers from hospitals, because mercury, to safely dispose of the mercury. It was a good program, he said, because that's toxic. It was very much helping. But what happened was some technology came out a year in, and made it where it was faster, cheaper, and better for the environment, for the hospitals to be able to dispose of it on site. Some way of doing it safely was invented that revolutionized getting rid of mercury thermometers.
Right.
So what do you do with this program, which now is no longer needed?
You get rid of
it. No. See, here's the rule for every organization, from this to the cops to the whatever. You use up all the money, or next year you won't get your budget filled. Everything is run on that. So that's why everything's a fucking nightmare all the time, because everything's a fucking scam. Everything. So this dude now, he said he had a cleaner conscience. He now worked for an arms dealer, and he felt better about what he was doing. Which is we were just talking about monetary ways versus building missiles, but I understood the point of what he's getting at. That's great. Government sucks. I can think of 20 things like that from a personal experience working in corporate anything that are the exact fucking same thing, except worse, because there's not even a constitution in those things for you. There's just whatever the fucking new Indian guy that took over decides your rights are going to be. And he's got kind of a real Southeast Asian sense of what human rights are as compared to here. If you that's your fucking Twitter guy. What? Free speech? We care about harm reduction. That's the kind of new fucking shit. So the idea of government versus business, the businesses have become governments. ExxonMobil, if people are mad about Israel influencing the United States, Israel's not as big as ExxonMobil. That's a bigger fucking nation. Israel's like our nation's agent. We owe them 10%. If they ever ask for 15%, they're committing a crime.
I've never done that since Dan. That's a great joke.
I just thought of it. They're our agent, basically.
Right.
Don't think Saudi Arabia doesn't control us, and don't think that also these companies that are bigger than nations, which I didn't know things were like that, because that all sounds like the most feverish, lefty dipshit thing I can think. It's just war for oil, man. That's what that sounds like. And guess what? It is. That's what the fucking that's why Gaddafi had to go all of a sudden when they were living with him, because he was going to go off the petrodollar, which when people think Bitcoin pollutes, that cracks me up. It's bad for the environment. Oh, unlike the eco-friendly petrodollar, which is what the real money is oil-based.
So just the value of sound money is worth whatever it costs us in electricity. The value that the government's not going to be able to just, print and devalue your wealth. It's worth it. So in other words, crypto might use energy, but it is a perfect algorithm. There's a perfect system there where the energy that we're using is in part what creates the scarcity, which then gives the money its value. And so it's worth it. It's worth it to have a sound currency.
No, right. That 100%.
Like it is a
Bitcoin.
valid use of electricity. Like people don't get it because they just go, well, it's just money, and so why do you have to tie it to electricity?
They don't know
You're
anything.
just wasting electricity, and it's like, yeah, but I also have money that the government can't rob me of. You can also now make payments to Sri Lanka where Western Union's not taking a giant fee. It's worth it.
I mean, they can rob you of it. That one thing about crypto is that FBI can track it. It's like a dream come true to the FBI.
For the FBI. That's there's this guy, James Rickards, who is an interesting financial writer. He's also a person who's been telling you that the economy was going under forever, but he was big into that Bitcoin was created by the NSA.
I don't believe that. Okay, I think that is a little bit far-fetched, but the reason people think that is an interesting, fair motive, because there is I was under the impression with some kind of governments can't control it or track. I guess they can't print more.
No, there's a perfect There's a perfect ledger, which means that it's actually more easily traced than currency. So, unless obviously there's people who can be, better with their wallets and moving it around and washing it and this, that, or the next thing. But there's a perfect ledger, so it's technically it's not anonymous. Like every single transaction, there's a perfect record of it.
I didn't know that. I think a lot of people don't realize that. What happens now is because of like NFTs and fucking like shitcoin. There is a bunch of pump and dump. In fact, on YouTube, that's a bunch of people that. Why is your thing so shaky?
Oh, sorry, that's my leg. My bad.
Oh, I thought you were having an earthquake.
No.
I had a body language expert on here. We were watching a video of this guy from FaZe Clan. I was some gamer fucking Twitch shit, but they all got into pump and dump shitcoin.
Hell yeah, dude.
Which Sam Tripoli told me about. Well, so he got caught, and they trade. What's amazing is there's people regulating on YouTube, regulating the other scam artists on YouTube.
You know what's great about that?
Yeah.
Like I used to love reading. I haven't read them forever, but the second section of the Wall Street Journal always had like the latest corporate fines, but it never goes as restitution. And so if you commit a financial crime, you don't get in trouble for it. You pay for the government, and you don't have to admit guilt. That's a bribe. That's what that is.
Yes, right.
Yeah, well, that's called a bribe. And so that's regularly what the biggest banks get to do. They don't have to admit fault. They pay off the government.
Yes.
The government, it's cost of business.
Everybody, look, this was shit everybody was kind of aware of. This is why Occupy Wall Street, I couldn't stand the fucking this shit and the whatever. But I very much enjoyed that they were tormenting Wall Street fucks. If I had to sit and look at those stupid drum circles and fucking tents and shit every day, I'm sure it tortured them. And I hope that they jump out of a window. That's what I was hoping. But
drum circles on Wall Street is much better than them calling us racist and bigots and canceling us.
That's why they did that. But that's why.
I'm aware of it. Yeah.
So once that happened, the government infiltrated that shit real quick. In fact, this is what they always do. That's why when people think there's a right and left battle, there is not. You might as well fight over right and left Twix. Which Twix do you support? Where are you, communist Twix?
I like that campaign. I'm pure left. I throw the right out. Tastes like garbage.
Yeah, I call the fucking right Twix a racist, and I fucking so that's what that shit is. And do you have that article, Mike, that I sent you? Okay, so I was aware. Now, BreadTube, I told you, is that's the left. That's the young socialist YouTube channel. So that's like Vaush, Hassan Piker. He's really a Twitch guy. I used to watch Oliver on YouTube because I watch anybody say. I don't care if what your thing is. I'll listen to everybody. I'll hear everybody out. I'll genuinely hear everybody out. I don't care if you're a fucking commie. Like preconceived things, I don't give a shit about. I want to know just in case you have something interesting. So I started to notice a weird thing where a lot of them, especially these young ones, they parrot a lot of weird shit. A lot of stuff where it's like very authoritarian and very like like not just authoritarian, but on the side of the government that I thought you wanted to end for more of a Marxist. It doesn't like they're not coherent. Always love identity politics. Always love that. Okay. So this is a gray zone. The gray zone, if you look up Wikipedia, this is a fringe left-wing maniac bloppity blop. The way it's described is so they might as well, they're like sub Alex Jones, according to Wikipedia. However, I have Aramate, one of the reporters on here regularly, They do some of the best fucking work, and you know why I trust them the most? Their newspaper, most of their reporting's about shit that no one cares about here. You know, like Nicaragua, shit that I know is real because that's what they get away with. The stuff that I don't care about, they get away. The government gets away with it. So these leaked files came out about this. You never heard of Abigail Thorne?
I don't think so.
Back when Abigail was Ollie Thorne, he had a video about, you know, people go like, you could be trans. I don't care. It's none of my business if you're trans. He made a video about how that's not fascism, but it's like a spore of fascism that can lead to fascism.
It's like the silence is violence type thing. If you're not an anti-racist, you're a racist. Same idea.
That's exactly right. Okay, so just scroll down. So I don't know where these files leaked, but there's this company. So this stuck out. So Jimmy Dore, whose show I write for now, he's anti-mandate. He got vaccinated. He had a bad reaction to it. His doctor, he had to go around to doctors because he had long-term fucking COVID after his thing. Some people just get like, I know somebody who had a, what is it called? A cytostorm or something. Like a buddy of mine who also, by the way, went to Yeshiva, but now he's in comedy. He got the Johnson & Johnson one that they've taken off the market because he didn't like needles. He's telling me a story, dude. I couldn't believe what he was telling me. So he goes, oh, let's get one shot with Johnson & Johnson. He goes home. All of a sudden, later at night, like he gets all these blisters in his mouth, and it's like really painful. And he's like, what the fuck? So he goes to the hospital, and they go, we don't know what the hell. We can't. They give him some painkillers and send him home. He goes home, takes painkillers, falls asleep, wakes up. It's all over his arms and his mouth. He has to go back to the hospital. They have to figure out what's wrong with him. He said, like, ironically, he didn't like needles, is why he got the one, but they stuck every conceivable thing into him and needles. And basically, he ended up having the diabetes that you're born with, type 3 or something. What's the one that you're born with? Not the one you get from being fat, but the one that's genetic.
I just pretend to be a doctor on podcasts, so I don't actually.
Well, he had that. He had that diabetes. I'm like, oh, and he goes, no, I don't have. I wasn't born with diabetes. I have the one that you only can be born with. But suddenly, I had that diabetes for 3 weeks. That was it. And then it went away. So what happened was it was an autoimmune response that some people get to not just this one, but I guess what he told me, the doctors told him, is some people just vaccines in general that can happen to them just from vaccines. But he said he had every other vaccination, never had a problem. This is shit they didn't, it's called Project Warp Speed for a reason, because it means, hey, it's not all done. And also people that think like, oh, you're crazy. That's what I don't get is people like, I got it because I rolled the dice and it looked like, for me, probably the best move. If somebody else doesn't get it, I don't see why they're a threat to me. I've never bought into the thing of you're getting vaccinated for the person next to you. I don't know what the fuck people are talking about. When I ask that, people go, well, we could have stopped it, the virus, if it was, no, you couldn't have. Israel proved that, by the way. No, you couldn't have. That's all nonsense. That was a lie from the get-go. If you go to the FDA website, frequently asked questions about the Pfizer, well, does this prevent the spread? They said, well, we don't know. We hope it does, because
hope is great science.
Well, why is the news saying it does, and why is Pfizer saying we hope it does? Because Pfizer, that's all part of the blanket immunity, not getting sued. They can't say that they know for sure, but the fucking media can just lie to you and tell you that, and what's the repercussions? Nothing. So anyway, scroll down, Mike, to this article a little bit. Okay, so all these YouTubers came out, BreadTube, they're the anti-fash YouTubers. So they're the ones that are always fighting against like the evils of, I don't know, fucking, Tucker Carlson and Steven Crowder. I'm sure Steven Crowder's like a big one. Like, we got to stop Steven Crowder. Do you know Steven Crowder?
I mean, I know who he is. I don't follow his stuff, but sure.
I don't follow his stuff either. I will say he did defend me back in the day.
Hell yeah.
Which
and
was
I love
cool
Steven Crowder. That's what I meant to say.
Well, his show's like, I don't like his show, but there's a guy, Dave, on it who I like a lot, who's like a sidekick on there. And also
he's actually super funny on that. I remember I saw one clip when Landau sat down. I was like,
Landau, that guy. Yeah. I like that guy a lot.
Dude, Landau's quick.
Steven Crowder's not a thing of like him or not. I don't know him, but when I watch him on Joe Rogan, for example, he was like advocating for weed to still be illegal. And I'm like, are you that kind of corny ass fucking like, did you get a script of like, because that doesn't make any fucking sense. Like, I get Ben Shapiro having some weird, I don't even know what his position is on. I assume it's something religious because he's religious. But like, what are you doing, dude? But whatever. I don't need him taken off the air for any fucking reason. I don't care. It's not a danger. So these fucking YouTube's BreadTube, which is like, we're the anti-fascist ones, they all take money from these different groups. So Valence, a PR company, let's see. Okay, they've revealed a state-sponsored influence operation, this is in the UK, to undermine critics of the British government's coronavirus policies by astroturfing a prominent founder of the BreadTube clique of anti-fascist YouTube influencers. The project aims to conduct psychological profiling on British citizens dissenting against policies such as mandatory vaccination and lockdowns, then leverage the data to establish a YouTube channel that portrays these critics as dangerous super spreaders of disinformation. So all this is what's been going on with the regular news. That's what Bill Gates pays the regular news to do. We just want you to focus on the right information or women's rights or some bullshit. And the media that was failing for quite some time because it couldn't compete needs this money desperately. So then they go along with it. So now they're doing it on YouTube's. So it's called Valence Project. They got their start. So they got their start, Valent. They were involved in the UK's Foreign Office campaign for violent regime change in Syria. You know anything about Syria?
I mean, loosely. What specifically?
What do you know about it? Let me ask you what you know about it.
What do I know about Syria?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it borders Israel. They got a nice chunk of it's a strategic port over there, which is why Russia's interested in it.
There's a pipeline. There's a competing pipeline that Russia would have. And we
other than that, pipeline. They've had a terrible civil war over the last 15.
Their dictator.
Dictator. But what's the better option out there? What are we going to send the Israelis in with ISIS to retake control of the country?
Well, that is what we've been trying to do. Bashar. So in Europe now, when I worked for Sasha Cohen, and not just him, the guy from Coldplay, they all believe there's like these
worked
people.
For the guy from Coldplay?
No, Sacha Baron Cohen, but all British people know each other that are famous.
Oh, okay, I got it.
And what do I know about fucking Syria? But I knew who Al Assad was, and I knew there was a show called Tyrant that had come out. There was originally an Israeli show. It's pretty good. It's about a guy who was like American born. He's an eye doctor and goes back home to his crazy country and ends up having to take over the country and become a tyrant. Like, it was cool. It was a cool transformation. It was loosely based on Assad. Assad was an eye doctor who became the dictator of Syria.
Well, he's weird if you watch him because he's not what you would think of a dictator. He's pretty well spoken. Like, he speaks English well. He's handsome. I mean, I'm sure the other thing, like, you realize the big money is that he owns most of the critical industries and its taxes. So he's somewhat invested in like order within the country. It's because he owns like all the electricity. Like, that's where the profit is for him. Yes, it's in the critical industries.
He's basically the Nancy Pelosi of his country. That's true. So he fucking, he owns, much like our country, he owns it. Now, I thought he was a madman. I don't know if you remember this. When Obama was president, this was big news for a minute. And I remember because Attell I always talk to Attell about stuff because he was like, Attell was always like very well informed of news shit. And he would like say funny things, you know. But do you remember Obama declaring a red line that if Syria uses chemical weapons? Yeah,
it was bullshit. They never did it. There were no chemical weapons. He didn't do it.
Right. But I know that because of Aaron I had on. But
no, but it was funnier than that.
Most people don't know that. Most people think that they did use chemical weapons.
And
100%.
John Kerry got caught on a bluff. That's how that war got de-escalated. John Kerry said, like, he just said, if they give up everything, then we won't go to war with them. And Assad's just like, all right, sure.
That's right. And that was a problem because
they wanted to go to war.
Yes, because he's an ally of Putin. We didn't even have to be at war with Iran. When we first went to Iraq, Iran was helping us because they didn't like Saddam. And George Bush then gave that speech about that moronic axis of evil speech about how there's three main evils and named Iran. And that changed everything. We're now, and you know why he did that? That was for Israel. Also Saudi Arabia, not just Israel, but that's what that's for. What do I give it shit if we're friends with Iran or not? So anyway, Syria, because we've been waging a dirty war there for the last, I didn't know how many years. Remember there was the freedom fighters in Syria? Those are all Al-Qaeda and ISIS. That's who. Guys, if you're worried about Al-Qaeda, whatever happened, they're our friends now. And we pretend that they're not Al-Qaeda. So there's this group called the White Hats that if you talk to a UK person that's not like really informed about it, they think that that's a real freedom fighter thing and we need to. No, that's Al Qaeda. And I know Sasha believes that white hats were good. He always kept bringing up Bashar al-Assad as like we had a bit where we get famous people to agree to play a dictator's birthday party, and it was Bashar al-Assad's party.
Okay.
And I always remember being like, why Bashar al-Assad? And it's because in UK that's a big project there is to overthrow Syria, and the CIA's in on it too. Anyway, anything you hear about it's a fucking lie. We probably have about 14 wars now. It was 7, but like the last time I checked the count, now it's up to like 14 because legally they don't have to tell us if there are war anywhere. So
you think
cool.
Sasha's dirty? I think that guy's dirty,
No.
but no.
Do I think Sasha's dirty as in what?
Well, I only watched the. Did you watch his last? Did you write on it? Shit, I shouldn't criticize it. The last movie put out on Amazon.
No, I did not watch it.
Did you watch the last scene with Rudy, where he set up Rudy as if Rudy was trying to take out his dick in front of like whatever the lady was?
Well, okay, because I don't know about the thing with Rudy, but I've been intimately aware of the process of doing the pranks, and when I was there, it was actually pretty kind of ethical. I thought like the one yacht guy on the Showtime show that was like telling him how to stack women, like he left out a bunch of stuff that would have really harmed the guy. And he was like, you can't, like, you could either lose your job or your marriage, but you can't lose both from. The thing is, this prank show now, the stakes are so much higher in the year 2017, 2020 and all that than they were when that show first came out. Back in the day, you'd just be embarrassed and whatever. But now this is so high stakes. It adds a whole new level to all this shit. With Rudy, I honestly couldn't tell you.
But do you think, like on Bashar al-Assad, do you think he picked that one as like
I think he doesn't read. Here's what I think. I think he doesn't read. He's not a big reader. He's not stupid.
Right.
Don't think he's a big reader. And he is connected. So what's he gonna? We got a fight about it.
No, but I'm saying from a propaganda perspective, that's a
he
good
buys whatever propaganda of his class.
Right.
And he does what any other famous actor does. To a degree, and he buys like the propaganda you're supposed to buy to be part of your thing and doesn't go against it. Even though he is like kind of it's funny how rebel he is, but the rich people all came together after Trump. They all came together because they didn't want him because they don't like Trump's a rich guy too, but he was Queen's money. He's not like in the club he's in some clubs, but he's not in a club that great. I mean, Trump did appoint a piece of shit like Rex Tillerson to be the EPA guy, the former CEO of ExxonMobil, unbelievable. After he was going to drain, it's not my joke, but the thing about he drained the swamp and then found his cabinet. That's what fucking Jimmy used to say. I don't even know how people still like him after he didn't protect you from any of the things he was supposed to.
And I still don't have a wall.
What?
I still don't have a wall.
Yeah, and Biden's got to finish the fucking wall. Like that, I don't know how anybody believes in their guy at all anymore. Because literally, if you're believing Biden, you must just not pay attention to anything but tweets because he's the same and worse in many ways. Most of these people, if Trump said we need lockdowns, you'd think they would fucking stay locked. They shut the no fucking way. Anyway, I don't understand the people's trust in their side because when I found out all the shit about Syria, which is a thing I didn't pay close attention to because what do I care? Then I'm like, oh, after they fucked up Iraq, they didn't want to ever have to deal with even telling you what they're going to do. They don't even want to have to deal with like the chemical weapons fakery. Obama said, we're going to go in it. And I remember people criticizing him, but he said to the, what's his name? The guy from the CIA, not Bennett. He goes, is this a slam dunk? Slam dunk was the word Colin Powell used about Iraq with weapons of mass destruction. You know what I mean? Like
so we're 0 for 1 on declaring slam dunks.
So the use of saying, is this a slam dunk or not? That's very loaded. That's like, don't fucking make me into this dumb fuck Colin Powell when it's not a slam dunk. They couldn't tell him it was a slam dunk. And that's why he didn't go in, because Assad did not use chemical weapons. But dude, I'll talk to people that I don't think know anything about Syria either. Like, yes, he did. He used chemical weapons. And then they hold on to it because like they saw it on CNN years ago and they know to pretend to be loyal to CNN still. Or not pretend like, no, that's the one that's the good one. Even though they don't really watch it. And if they did, they would notice it. They're getting the most disinformation. On the Seller podcast yesterday, they had a guy. As I'm coming in, Hot Tim brings me in. What the fuck was the guy's name? They were like, you're talking about where should you get news from? And he goes, well, I would stick with mainstream media, like CNN. And so I'm like, I get in and I go, oh, no, I'm sorry. He said, you stick with mainstream media. So I'm like, what? So I go in and I'm like, hey, can you recommend a good mainstream media? Which mainstream media should I go to? I was very aggressive, actually.
Right.
More than I maybe wanted to be. He goes, well, CNN, because I work there. Oh, CNN, the good one? The one with the fucking Cuomo Brothers comedy out? Yeah, I heard they're good. Fucking, this guy ended up leaving. And all I did was like, dude, you think that's a reliable? I didn't even get into it with him. He just knows he works for the company and he better run. Without even a real...
It's not just better to run. Like, you got to go back to that commercial they ran of like an apple's an apple or whatever. So they want to pretend like they're on such a high level that if you're even asking them, it's so offensive that they can't even engage with you. That's like the level of propaganda and mindset that they have. That we are number one. We're the only real news source. And if you even have a question about that, then that's offensive and you're creating disinformation and I can't engage.
Yeah, well, these are technique. Now, when they do it, I assume the people, the talking heads on, most of them are very stupid. They're like, some of them are dumber than actors. Actors are pretty fucking stupid, but news people are like emptier versions of actors. The ones you see, like the talking head ones. There's real journalists, obviously, but like your Brian Williams he's Brick. He's Brick from Anchorman. That's who Brian Williams is. Oh, did you see his farewell speech?
I did not.
Here, wait, Mike. Okay, first I want to show you this. This is a thing that, now I got this from Jimmy's show. I couldn't believe it when I saw it though. Will you play that clip of this guy? Because this ties into that article when I'm talking about these people are shills for either intelligence or just companies, but they're paid shills. And it happened a long time ago, like in 2012. That's when the thing happened. So this guy, Brittle Star. Okay, you tell me just your thoughts when you see this.
All right.
Had my third shot. A booster, they call it. How many more are they going to make us get? Don't know, don't care. Because I, like you probably, understand there is a global pandemic, and people much, much smarter than you and me have decided this is the best plan of action to avoid lots more people dying or cluttering up hospital hallways. You and I, we're doing our part by getting one more little prick and not being one.
What do you think of that message?
A cute little ending at the end. I mean, I don't agree with him, but
how many more will they make us get? Don't know, don't care.
I mean, it's a wild claim. There's got to be some sort of threshold.
He makes viral videos with corporate. Yeah. I went on. So Jimmy was showing that he had some they taught. So
Bobby, can watch it. Just to break down the don't know, don't care. Like don't know. Firstly, there's some. If you had to go in every single day, if it became like a heroin needle type thing, you would care. Also, if you just start breaking down the fucking booster strategy, and I'll just break down why it makes no sense. All right, so they know that every time that the virus mutates, the current vaccine's not going to work for it because it's not designed for the mutations. Right. Now, it takes them at least 2 months before they can make that recognition. It takes them another 4 months till they can roll out a shot. It takes another 2 months at best before it gets into everyone's arms. So what's it? It's 6 to 8 months before they have a new vaccine, and then the virus is mutated. So you're on a treadmill where they're constantly giving you a shot for the old virus.
Don't care.
So they don't have a working strategy. Now, your other issue is, sorry, I'm going to go off on this. They don't even know how long your booster is going to work for. So at first it was, hey, you take the shot and you're good. Then you got to be boosted. Then the best data was that the booster was good for 6 months. Now they're already finding out that once you get it, it's probably only good for 10 weeks. Now you have an additional problem that not to go too, I don't like to get too conspiracy with vaccine side effects because I think it was a bad gamble for healthy individuals to get this because there isn't a lot of utility. I don't think it's offering you a lot of benefit, and there is a possibility of long-term health effects. Does that mean that there absolutely will be? No, it just means it's a new technology and you put risk on your plate. I've had I've had a scientist come onto my podcast quite a few times who's been right about a lot of the COVID stuff. And he said that in trial data, percentage increases are a very important tool. And so each time with the booster, we've been noticing that there's a increasing rate of the myocarditis, which is the one known side effect. Now that's exponential. If you're already noticing that at booster shot 3, you have an increase in the side effect, how much worse might that go to 4, 5, or 6? And then we don't even know what other side effects could exist. I'm not saying they do exist. I'm not saying you're going to fall down and die. I'm just saying that you're putting yourself at risk. And then even if they, by the way, the fucking pre-trial data, I don't want to get your channel in trouble. I get in trouble all the time on my channel.
Yeah, wait, don't. Because here's the thing. Like, all that information, so you know, the people that were going to get in and also the YouTube, whoever on YouTube is going to fuck with you for whatever you just said, they don't give a Did you not hear what the guy just said to you? He doesn't know and he doesn't care.
Yeah,
and you're going on.
You're basically saying, hey, I'm an idiot. Like, look at me. I don't care.
Right.
And that's because these guys are glorifying compliance. That's the only thing they care about. And that's why when you hear the hospital bed thing, where they go, obviously it's because they're in a religion of compliance. And since you violated the religion, how dare you take my hospital bed?
That's exactly what I'm getting at. The thing where they go, and people says to me, not like, well, they're like, they believe in science. No, you don't believe in science. You believe in consensus. This is very different than science. Science is like, a way of knowing what's true.
This isn't even consensus. If you look at the numbers prior to the mandate, half of eligible people did not get the vaccine.
Consensus with me and my team that are the most important, because you don't understand. Trump could come back.
Right, but that's one of the manipulative tricks that they pull, is that they try and pretend that everyone's in agreement with them, and if you're not, you're crazy. And the numbers actually aren't on their side.
No, I know. This has been going on for a long time. Like, that's the goal of all the things where you're like, what? I was just trying to look up what J.K. Rowling said that was so bad. You know, like the amount of
she hates trans people.
Right, but what did she say? Yes, no, I know she's a bad person, hates trans people. I looked up what she said, and none of it was even slightly insulting. Or it also was like, hey, you do what you want, but instead of saying person who menstruates, it's a woman. That's stupid. Like, that's the thing most people think. Most of the people. And they want... Well, you're crazy.
Yeah, you can choose to no longer be a lady, but you got to plug up that hole and stop bleeding. You can't have both.
Well, I don't think trans women are women. I think they're better than women. And I think the sports scores back me up on that. I think if you look at sports, they're clearly better than women by every available metric.
It's a similar thing with, I think, with all media and money, and what you were just pointing to with apparently all these left people are being paid. A lot of it is the repetition becomes persuasive and the noise becomes persuasive. Like, my dad's a smart guy, but since all of mainstream media has been talking about the vaccines, he just thinks I'm absolutely insane.
But what does he know about it? Like, this is what I want to know.
That's what I'm saying, because everything that would be counter has been censored.
Do you know what Big J said to me when I had him and Ryan on when I was in New York? Big J, he goes like, here's his position. He's like, yeah, just get it. So that's the fucking position. Listen.
That was the same advice he gave to you before an abortion. Just have the kid. Just have it.
Yes, that's kind of. As a matter of fact,
thing.
that
just
was
whatever. Just do it.
But I was going to, but did Chick want to do? Anyway, he But that's the so why would Jay say that? Okay, one, Jay doesn't know anything. Okay. Two, so he's blissfully unaware of the level of how much it doesn't work. It's a good microcosm. Okay, it didn't harm him. Also, he's still plugged in. He makes plenty of money at his job. Right? And he's in a thing where he's show business still and around. So all the incentives, called rational ignorance or something, right? There's a term for it where you choose not to know things. And Jay chooses not to know that stuff. Okay. Because why would he bother to take on knowing anything about politics or any of that? So to him, it's an easy thing. Like, just get it. What's your problem? So there's no thought. Now, if a lot of people are like that with every fucking thing, if you know someone where they're fucked because of it, then all of a sudden it changes. Like, I didn't understand how our shitty healthcare system worked until I was dating someone who had a pre-existing condition. And I was like, wow, everybody thinks this is, wow, if you think this is good, you must not have a pre-existing condition, where the company's like, no, we don't even want your business because we don't want to have to pay out, and God forbid. And I'm like, why do we need to keep you around? It's easy for everyone. That's what America is based on. In its soul is like not getting it until it happens to you. Now, an encouraging thing, I think, is a bunch of people that are right-wing who previously were probably rah-rah American Dad cartoon personalities of like the CIA is good and our wars are good and whatever, have now had a abrupt, rude awakening that's not like that. And that's why some of them pop off and go crazy. And there's things like QAnon. That's why I say controlled burn is all of these angry things, the fighting with J.K. Rowling because she said an innocuous thing. These are being drummed up on purpose by a coalition of media intelligence. They're not all together in it, but they all have factions that are doing this on purpose, okay? And it's one fucking reason is to keep people divided because then you're controlled. So that's why there's no, I finally understand what Barry Crimmins, who's dead, used to always tell me America doesn't have a left. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I had to deal with them quite a bit. I know what he means now. Now I get what he's saying. He's talking about in the sense of in America, there used to be an actual kind of populist left. There was that, and it was effectively destroyed. And it was the left of not neo-Marxist, authoritarian, fucking we hate the proletariat. It was of people being paid fair. It was the stuff that took us out of the Gilded Age. Because that's what we're back in. Because now we've got new Rockefellers and new fucking Carnegies. They're the Zuckerbergs and the Gateses, and they're the new generation, and they've completely paid Bill Gates, the Bill Gates Foundation. If you look it up, he's the biggest amount of money he's ever spent. He spent giving away to news organizations, and it's like New York Times, fucking The Guardian. It's all the left-wing ones take their money from a fucking billionaire who works with Big Pharma. And they call him Saint Bill and shit. Isn't that weird that leftists love? They hate Elon Musk. Elon Musk is the unacceptable billionaire for some reason compared to these other motherfuckers who have done considerably worse things to the world. Bill Gates uses Africa as a testing lab for wackadoo fringe science experiments that he can't get away. So when you hear the conspiracy theory about the microchip from the vaccine, I thought that was misinformation put out by the companies themselves at first. No. It's a real thing. It was a rubella vaccine in Africa that they were going to give you with a chip so they could have your entire vaccine history and experiment with those passports. Like, as soon as it gets filtered down to people that don't know that much or haven't heard enough of it, it becomes the vaccine's a microchip. But it was actually based in a very real thing that Bill Gates did there because he can't do shit like that here. The reason all the lockdowns, he wants his fucking homeschool forever using Microsoft technology to take off. Though that's what he wants. It just so happens that his fucking industry is all the things that are going to save the world. He's going to save Africa with some Microsoft fucking wackadoo shit when all they need is some mosquito nets and some fucking intubulation things that are much cheaper that he won't pay for because it's not about that. It's about that's what they're all doing. So that giving pledge, you ever hear that? The Warren Buffett giving play. That's all a tax shelter. It's all nonsense.
By the way, of the billionaires, both Buffett and Gates, just from getting past your bullshit rate, or you would think you were good at spotting evil. Prior to the divorce, Bill Gates really did look like this sweet sweater loving, hey, go read books, grandpa type guy. That when people were like, oh, he's the most evil person ever, even I was just like, I don't know.
How old are you?
Me, 33.
Okay, so when I was how old were you in 1995?
It's like second or third grade.
Okay, back then, he was the monster to people.
Oh,
See,
really?
Bill Gates, yeah, he got brought up, and now I would differ. Some people that I know would he was always evil, but part of this is he got shaken down by the government for giving away back when AOL was making you pay for it. For the hourly, he kind of destroyed their business by giving it away with the computer. Some shit where they're like, "Oh, this is a trust."
I mean, the Internet Explorer was just on the computer. And so
some shit like that, and the government was not being bribed by him at the time. They were being bribed by somebody else who was like,
right.
The government doesn't give a shit about trust busting or any of that. Somebody that they're in bed with is mad about another person who's going to take over their. That's how our system works. So they brought him in. They hauled him in. Again, go to Jake Tran on YouTube. He's got great footage of all this shit. Really amazing. And you see all these old senators saying to Bill Gates, I don't know who you are. You don't have an office here in town. And that's why Google and Amazon and all these other companies have a Washington, D.C. obby.
Well, they learned their lesson. I actually think they tried to stay out of it.
That's right.
A couple of years ago, Facebook, all these companies, they got brought to the Senate floor and they learned their lesson. Here's the way it works. You can pick a team. To an extent, if you're paying the Democrats, the Republicans go, all right, well, they're paying that side, but they're both in it together where you got to come in and you got to pay a side. Boner. Remember John Boner?
Yep.
They used to say it was like literally a toll.
John sells weed now, Boner. Yeah, I remember.
Oh, he sells weed?
That's what he went into, the marijuana business.
Oh, that's
after
fucking awesome. I remember reading an article at some point that they called it the Boner toll, which essentially he wouldn't bring bills to the floor unless like you made the proper contributions to the party.
Of course.
So like, so like there would be important legislation that, you know, could affect just, I don't know, your permit to do whatever with oil and whatnot. And it wasn't happening unless you made that payment.
Yeah. Well, so he did that with, see, the Koch brothers were the big boogeyman rich people. One of them's dead now. The other one is like he's like 50th below.
What's their evil? Because I know they're like big in nuclear, but like what are their other? I think they're also a lot.
Their whole thing was they astroturfed the Tea Party. Like that astroturfing was kind of, it's probably been around forever actually. Oh, you know what? AstroTurf's been around since
Can you define AstroTurf? I got to be honest. I don't know.
Creating a fake groundswell movement of things shaken. So the Tea Party that wasn't a bunch of people, much like BLM. That wasn't a bunch. It was some rich guys got some people to get together to hopefully make it take off. And sometimes the things do take off. The Tea Party was very effective in certain ways for certain agenda shit. That's why you always hear why don't we have a Tea Party to do things like, because the Democrats are bought out and they can't go again. They don't work for you. They work for the same people Republicans do. So the fucking, that's the Tea Party's fate. It wasn't like a grassroots fucking thing. When Obama got in, see, they're so ridiculous. That's the old oligarchs. Now big tech is big oil. You know, right. Big oil is big oil, but also green technology is also big oil.
Green technology is also in with the biggest banks.
Yeah, and they're also polluting like a motherfucker. And what's his name? Michael Moore found out the hard way when he looked into shit, and then they played games with his documentary. First time I've ever seen all the fucking liberal chattering classes go against him. Like, what do you mean green energy isn't really doing anything? Like, that's the sad fact is like all this, like, we're going to technology our way out of it. Well, I hope you're right, but doesn't always really work like that. Anyway, they fucking, all these things are just cabals. And then, so now you hear shit like sustainability all the time. It's something called a circular economy they want, where like you're going to eat bugs. That's what all that Great Reset and I own nothing and I love it. The Judge Smales future, like you'll get nothing and like it. That's what that is. And that's because here's what the people at the tippy top know. It's not sustainable. Okay? And just so you understand how much they've known for a long time, like recycling you've heard of, right? The scam of recycling. You know whose idea that was? It was the plastic company cartel came up with recycling. That wasn't any environmental thing. They used to make high quality plastic that people didn't throw away. They kept reusing, and that didn't work. So they made it cheap so you'd throw it away. So you have to buy more. That was around the time when they'd start making shit bad on purpose. And they had that bright fucking, I know we all love capitalism, but there's a certain criticism of that's the kind of shitty things that come in people's head that if you're going to have capitalism, you should recognize so you can, squelch it. They fucking, so then they started making it where, it's not sustainable. The petroleum's not sustainable. So we have to figure out, they knew this in the 60s, which is what blows me away. In the 60s, they go, oil is not a finite thing. Like we have to get people to recycle the plastic. Meanwhile, it was never recycled. We were just sending it to China and telling them to throw it away. And I used to work in recycling. I always knew it was a scam, but that's where all this shit comes from initially. The people at top make this shit up. So now what they all know, the globalists, all the fucking like, this is where I can't stand the stupid, like where you hear like free market people are complete jagoffs.
I might fall into this category, but I'm willing to hear you out.
The thing of free trade is always, there's this idea, and I know so many people that made so much money with doing specifically outsourcing. And I can tell you firsthand if you know these people, which in Connecticut you must. They don't give a fuck about America or They think of themselves as global rich people citizens and not Americans, number one. Number two, they're like, so what if the jobs are going? Fuck these people. They don't work as hard for way less money like a fucking third world will. Which you could get away with doing that for a while, but what happens is those people start to catch up and they go, I don't want to fucking, and then they have to ship it to a shittier country who doesn't fucking know any better. And that can't go on forever. All these people know that at the top. That's what those meetings are about at fucking Davos, all that shit that like, who goes to that? That's what they talk about. And they've come up with a solution, which is they'll be capitalist. You'll be in this quasi-socialist authoritarian state that doesn't give you very much. Like, you're not going to get healthcare and shit. You're just going to get the socialist. We tell you what to do from a centralized location, and we'll be owning the things. So whenever people argue about socialism or capitalism, it always ends at the same place, which is monarchy. I don't know why people think that capitalism will fall and it will be social. That was the original, right? No, that didn't happen. Socialism, and we're going to have no, everything leads back to dynasties and monarchy. And that's what every government in America, where you'd think we'd hate that, everyone loves that. They love kings and princesses, and all that stupid shit is deep in people are like, just regular people, like my daughter's my princess and I'm a king and all, like that's a real root stream. Like, we kings and all that stupid shit. People love it in their fucking soul. And I don't know how the fuck you get rid of it. I really don't. I don't think you ever will. But I do know, unless you have very vigorous balances where, okay, we're going to be capitalist, I want somebody who's a prick fucking commie watching them. I want it balanced out. You see what I'm saying? I don't want one guy's idea, because it's been a fucking disaster. And now even people that never caught on are starting to catch on. That's why you're seeing a ratcheting up of the hate each other. This is why we got white supremacy originally. You know where that came from, white supremacy? That was when there was a populist movement, because all the farmers, they were black and white, and they were getting fucked by these by these corporate things. And so the newspapers, the term populism was an insult invented by the press. And the press, like, where's their white loyalty and white? That's what the fuck that was from. That was the rich people coming up with a reason not to get eaten by the angry peasants. They came up with, well, you're white, aren't you? And guess what? The trick still works. Well, I mean, you're still a woman of color, right? Who should be a vice president one day. And if you have to keep people in slave labor to do it, I mean, that's what you had to do as a woman of color. It's so much harder for you to get your hopes and dreams. So you should be able to do whatever the fuck you want. And stuff that I would condemn a white male for, I admire, because about time a woman was as shitty as the shittiest white male, who we all thought was great being shitty, apparently. We all loved evil white men. Remember how we all loved that? We were all like, hey, that's awesome. I don't know. That's what I've been told over and over again from, I don't know. I remember working on Schumer. She's like, white men are told they're wonderful. Like, we are? Where did you grow up? I
didn't get that speech too often.
You mean the guys you fuck? That's what that is. The girls that fuck these guys that suck are mad about it, and they're now the only guys that are dumb enough to listen to them are like the kind of nice guy weak types. They're we were bad.
Well, no, I think what you're saying is because we all blow smoke up women's ass in order to get laid. They think that we actually live in a reality of compliments all the time, that's just men.
Well, if they're pretty, I mean, there's a lot of like realities.
If you're a dumb, slutty bitch, then you don't think that white men think that there's such hot shit because you don't live in that nice universe. But if you're a pretty white lady and you're getting
also there's a class. Here's something I've noticed. There's an extreme. And by the way, I worked with people I thought were very talented on Amy's show for the most part, like something a bit, but these were all upper class people that could afford improv lessons, and their woman problems, some of them were ridiculous. Like we had a sketch about, it was like a diamond ring commercial for like when a man's like wasting your time and it's like a ring that's not an engagement ring. It's just like,
it's funny.
Yeah. But I'm like, is that feminist? That sounds like very, what's the word? Jewish yenta in her 30s.
Right.
Who's not married.
No, that's
yet.
A very privileged problem.
And so that's what you have, is that boutique leftism.
Right.
It's very, in New York, I mean, I'm sure you've seen it in Connecticut. No fucking way you're not seeing that shit. And it's a lifestyle kind of like, there's two, there's the Jews that are conservative that I know every kind of Jew for years now, but there's the kind that are like conservative. Then there's that Vermont Sarah Silverman kind. Sarah told me that that's her form of Judaism. The way she grew up in Vermont, being a good Jew meant being a good Democrat. And that's why, she just got attacked because she said to Joyanne Reed, like, read this before. Maybe Rick DeSantis is setting up his own private army for fascist reasons. Or maybe you've heard that insane story because he's going to have a state guard. You know what a state guard is?
It's pretty cool of him.
Well, the more important part is California has that. New York has that. 23 states have it. They're not armed. They do little extra things like rabies vaccinations for pet stuff that the National Guard doesn't handle. My guess is because if they start doing mandates and they have to fire National Guard that wouldn't get that, now they have a state guard that can still do those. That's probably what it is. It says it in the article that Joy Reid from MSNBC posted, if you read the article, but nobody read it. They just read the headline, DeSantis, private army, okay? And Joy Reid posts, this is fascisty bananas, y'all, right? I love the y'all from Harvard graduate Joy Reid. Hey, y'all, this is fascisty bananas. And so Sarah, she goes, well, if you read the article, you'll see it's not that. So Sarah, to her credit, sees this thing, and she goes, please read this. The truth has to matter. So Sarah got dogpiled as a racist for criticizing a black woman who went to Harvard. And you know what they were saying? How dare you assume she didn't read it? And you know what? They're right. That is hubris, Sarah. Why would you assume that she didn't read it? Because that's the condescending. She thinks the good people are the Democrats. So she assumed. I saw her do it with Bill Burr too, where she's like, you don't really think that, honey. Like, it's this condescending kind of like woman thing where she goes, oh, she must have just not read the article. And I better give her it because this could cause misinformation. Not understanding that Joy Reid is a professional liar. Of course she read the fucking article. She purposely lied about it because she read it. You just want to assume the best about your team as if it were Judaism itself. That's how you treat it. And it ain't just Jews doing that. There's a lot of people. There's people buying Fauci, like Catholic, those Catholic dopey candles that Catholics have that they fucking pray to Mary like the pagans they like the pagan uncircumcised animals they are. They have Fauci candles, Fauci prayer candles. These are the science people are buying fucking teddy bears, and it blows my fucking mind.
Well, Fauci's best science is that we have to hope. So, you got to light a candle. It's part of the ritual. It's
Fauci is science.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know that.
He's the god of it. So that's why this virus hasn't gone away. Not enough people are at home lighting candles.
Yeah, that JFK Jr. book, I know he's got a weird fucking, like he got kicked in the throat voice, but the book, I think it's probably out of stock. That it's called The Real Doctor.
I just got the audiobook. I haven't started yet, but I got the audiobook.
Dude, when you hear it, you're like, what the, and I realize, because I've seen RFK Jr. on TV forever. I didn't know anti-vaxxers, what I remember, because I used to have jokes about them, was Jenny McCarthy said her kid was autistic from vaccines. We thought was stupid. I'm like, he's half and looks like autism, but it's not. What are you, Jenny McCarthy? Who gives a shit with Jenny? So, as far as I knew, that anti-vax was like, you're against the concept of vaccines. That's crazy. However, what I didn't understand was the slick move by Big Pharma to move concerns about their neglect and corruption into the crazy, just like QAnon's a way to muddy the waters about the real vile shit that they do.
It's just marketing to call their product a vaccine. It's not a traditional vaccine. It's a new thing.
Well, try explaining that to somebody. They do not care. But what I say to get to people, because I know nobody, all that shit you were saying, which you were not wrong, they don't care about that. They're already emotional. Okay. So you imagine you're talking to like a shitty girlfriend. That's how you have to imagine it. What is she going to take what I'm saying? One, she already kind of knows she's wrong deep down, but she's emotional. So she's going to take what I said and twist it into something I didn't say to get me upset. So I'm going, that's not what I said. It's I would say a very white girl trick, culturally speaking.
I don't date. This is for me.
Oh, dude, I have no idea of the princess fucking shit that from a middle class upbringing with the level, how different it is depending on who like there's a lot with the stuff that's labeled as woman or man or even like millennial. They're really just talking about middle to upper middle class white people and their kids, and that's always meant. The college kids and the whatever. You think a bunch of Mexican kids are millennials like that? No, they're not. They're like the new fucking delivery guy or something. Like that's it's such a thing where these are the people that have controlled all the media. It sounds like I'm talking about the Jews, doesn't it? But I'm not. I'm just saying.
It's fine if you are. I'll get your back on it.
A certain class of people, and you say what you need to stay in your fucking church or temple or whatever it is that this is for you, and you know not to fuck with it. And I have an allergic reaction to it because of Jehovah's Witnesses to this day. it makes me crazy to watch the thing of like, don't even talk about that. You're fomenting vaccine hesitancy by what you said. The facts don't matter. I saw Bill Nye the Science Guy talking about, now people, he's not a scientist. He's a science guy, which means he's a fucking stand-up comic is what he is. And then he became a science guy. He took engineering. He does have a bachelor's degree. But that's not a scientist. He's certainly not a climate scientist. And you know what? You don't have to be one, because I don't think climate change isn't real. And I don't think anyone's saying, they're saying whether man did it or not. You know that even the right-wingers are like, it's not a question of if it's real. It's a question of, is mankind causing it?
Yeah, okay. I'm okay with that. Okay, sure.
But you understand that's a massive vaccine-like goalpost shift from, no, it's not happening, to it's happening, but who knows who it could be. That's again, you need a mask, you don't need a mask, not trustworthy. But here's the bottom line. The reason they fuck up the people that politicize it is the predictions. I was Jehovah's Witness. They said the end is coming. Jehovah's Witnesses predict the end of the world fucking 5 times. Or, I mean, I don't even know how many fucking times
Well, they probably get better at predicting each time. So, you know, it's not the total loss. And they probably get better at selling it. You learn each time.
But, okay, that's a religion, seeing a science thing. I just watched that movie, Don't Look Up. Did you see that movie on Netflix?
No, I heard it. Was it good?
Parts of it are funny, but also I didn't fully understand what they were getting at in a lot of it. However, there's certain parts of it are like, in the beginning, are like really, I thought were funny as shit. Because Adam McKay's a funny dude. The thing of a comet's going to hit the Earth in 6 months, and you know everybody's acting stupid. I was like, okay, this must be about climate change. But then as it went on, I'm like, is this about COVID? And then the female president is funny, like Jonah Hill's the chief of staff for the president. What's her name? That actress. And it comes out in the conversation that he's her son, which is really fun. Like,
okay,
he says something about, he goes, they're talking about something else, and it's mentioning how she, before like her Playboy, she's like the hottest president that ever appeared in Playboy, he says to them. And then the next line he goes, right, mom? And you're like, oh my God, that's your mom. Like, it's a funny setup. So there's some shit that's funny. Okay. But then the parts where I'm like, what are you saying? Like, oh, also the guy who plays the billionaire who affects all the policy on it is fantastic. He's like this weird mix up of Bill Gates and every other autistic weirdo that's a tech giant, and it's genuinely funny, the shit with him. Okay. The thing that gets bizarre is it's Leonardo DiCaprio and what's her name, that actress she has like that lesbian problem hair in the movie. She's not real. Yeah. Jennifer Lawrence. And so they go on the news and she's like, why is everybody acting like it's not a problem? And they go, oh, she's crazy. And then they love Leo DiCaprio, scientist, and he becomes like a star. What are you satirizing? In real life, you think they're going to take the white guy being mad on a daytime network fucking news show, and they're not going to uplift the woman with lesbian hair who sounds crazy. That's our number one thing we love now, is a woman with shitty chopped up hair who can't even. That's an American hero according to the media. So that seems like a deliberate, they didn't, you know what I mean? Like right. Cut this shit. And then like the president says like all this shit about Jesus, where I'm like, is that even a relevant thing for a president? Was she Sarah Palin? Is that who this female president is supposed to be? But what I got the idea was they were trying to lampoon not only real stuff, but also they're trying to make it like the one with Peter Sellers, that is Dr. Strangelove.
Right.
Because it ends like Dr. Strangelove. And also, the spoiler alert, go fuck yourselves if you don't like it. And also, they're trying to make it like the movie Armageddon with Bruce Willis. So they send Ron Perlman up on a mission because they're going to avert their and he's like saying all this weird racist shit, and they're like, yeah, he's from a different time. I don't know what the fuck they're talking about with that part of it. It seemed insane. It just seemed like they were trying to do too much and also not enough. So overall, as a satire, I wasn't overly impressed, but there are some funny parts. It's interesting to watch, I will say. But here's why it's a bet. It is for climate change later, I found out. It's an analogy. It's not a good analogy for climate change, because in the movie, they know the comet with certainty is going to hit the Earth in 6 months. They don't say it's going to be 6 months and then a year goes by and it hasn't happened. The alarmism with it, and all, if you read like the real people that handle the science of it, they're not saying it's not real. They're saying we have 11 years, the AOC bullshit of we have 11 years or we're going to die is not productive. It's like this calculated thing to scare people. And that's going to make it worse. That's going to make people be like, well, because when I hear that, I'm like, oh, I think too late was 20 years ago by my calculations from when I first started hearing this.
Right.
Like, so I don't even know why I'm like, oh, I thought we were already dead. That's what you told me fucking 30, and so that's the fucking problem is the politicizing of everything, including basic science. And of course, a thing like gasoline, of course, a thing like oil, which is a resource, one of the few resources that has scarcity to it. Most things, we don't really have, scarcity is a made up thing. Like everyone can have a diamond. If we have plenty of diamonds, if everybody wants a diamond, but some family has them all. And then we pretend they're valuable because I don't know, we have to do that. Like, but with oil, that's the thing that's running out for sure. So, and then once that's out, then it's going to be the water. Wait till the fucking water wars happen. That's going to be fun. All the fucking oil and shit, like it's very impossible to get a straight answer on what's real and false. It's like very hard to tell. I don't know, like anybody who thinks whatever, I don't know how you find the real shit because it seems like a minefield. And then you have to kind of like intuit like, all right, what's this guy's agenda and what's this person's agenda? That's a lot of work that a lot of people don't want to do.
One thing though that is interesting about the scarcity of both oil and water is that as we consume more of them, technology gets better. And then like even with oil, we're able to get oil from places that we were never able to get it from before. Like we're able to get more out of the oil that we pull out of the ground, water with desalinization. So it's like, while those are finite resources, as technology develops, we're able to get it from we're able to pull water from places that we couldn't. We're able to clean water from places that we couldn't. We're able to get oil and energy from places that we couldn't.
You know, there's a huge thing with it. Like, I don't know if you know that people talk about the military industrial complex.
Right.
They got nothing on Nestle. Nestle's one of the most vile corporations in the world.
Yeah, it's unbelievable when Nestle gets away with child labor still.
Well, not only that, stealing people's water and selling it to them. That's what they did in India.
It's unbelievable.
Okay, but all the chocolate, this is still blows
slave
me away.
labor, slave labor. Yeah.
Literally Oompa Loompas. It's literally they pay them in fucking beans to eat, and the
Supreme Court dismissed it.
Yeah, but the company said we're committed to doing it, and they're not. So if you get free trade, probably a slave picked it. So even worrying about if your Nike's a slave made, don't worry, everybody. Everything you have. The bottom line is all this thing that you mentioned, the miracle of all our cheap shit. The big lie is that it's like sustainable, whatever. I'm not saying like get rid of it, but I think people are under the illusion they're ethically consuming anything and you're not. A bunch of people have to be fucked over for a bunch of things that you wouldn't believe. And it's on purpose that you don't know because they don't, it affects people's fucking business plans. And so I don't know, like, it's not that I have like an answer to it, but I do know I have no belief in anybody's, like, if I don't know, do you have like a definition politically? Are you like, I'm a something like a libertarian or a Republican?
I'm fairly libertarian.
Like, I don't have any trust in anybody's fucking theory of how it goes. I just don't trust it. Everything's great on paper. I just read an article about how Greece held back the advance of science for years because they were so obsessed with abstract thought being the end all be all with all their philosophers. It stunted practical application of knowledge for like 1,000 years or something.
Okay.
It sounds like now where's the new inventions that were supposedly coming? It's like academics sniffing their own fucking farts with unworkable, and they all are just totally and the people that are the most confident, I notice, it's certainly the things I've said with the most confidence in my life, of like, it's not war for oil, shit like that I've said with out of my face to people who were right, but I didn't like their stupid fucking hippie face or whatever dumb reason I had, with supreme confidence, and I hadn't looked any of it up. You know what I mean? Like, I totally get anybody being like that, because if you do look it up, it's fucking crazy. Like, whatever you believe in, it doesn't matter what it is, just so you know, it's a fucking sham. I'm sorry to tell everyone. You can have principles, but anything of like, I'm a capitalist, I'm a communist, none of these things are a solution. I just don't believe it. None of them are a solution. And you may need to pivot out of them at a moment's notice. And how fast can you do that, Shit. You know what? My power thing came out while I was flapping my gums. How's the show with Dave going?
Part of the problem? I love Part of the Problem. I've been doing that like 5 years now.
Yeah, Dave's a long-running libertarian. How old is Dave now?
I mean, he's an old man. He's got to be like 50, going on 50 something.
Dave's not 50.
No, he's like, I think he's coming close to 40, I believe.
Yeah, it's funny when I think about it now. When I used to argue with Dave all the time, because I used to be like, I would never say I was libertarian, but I leaned more that way.
Right.
And then, you know, as you get older and you notice like shit like surprise billing, and you're like, oh, someone should maybe pay attention to these people. But then who watches the Watchmen, I guess. And then as I get older, like, it's funny, a lot of these arguments and like that bread tube thing I showed you of the fucking, you know, they're being paid to say COVID, basically say you're a fucking maniac for that COVID shit you said.
Right.
If somebody's young, like, they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. I mean, it's just, that's what it is. And those studies, I think it's in that article, but the people susceptible to that shit are all below 45. After the age of 45, it's hard to get people with that psyop shit. It's only and you know what?
Yeah. I remember reading an article that a lot of like the abstract art, maybe even like the Jackson Pollocks, the money behind it was actually the CIA was buying that shit because they were trying to make it seem like Americans had high culture when we were like competing with the Russians.
You know, it sounds crazy, but I believe it 100%. Sounds insane, by the way.
No, it sounds, but in other words, like, we're competing with the Russians. They want to make it seem like American high art has tremendous values. They're going in and they're purchasing it. I think there's a similar thing, even like there's a baseline of everything in our economy. Like, even like, look at the ad spots on shows like this versus like CNN. Like, CNN gets so much more per impression, not because it does more for advertisers, but because companies just need to, like, it's not that they need to support CNN. They're all kind of on the same team. Like, corporations will take things that are not good, like, just from a market profit perspective, but they're very good from being on the side of government perspective.
But do you know, yeah, that's for their ESG. That's what all this is.
No, I understand. It all wraps into the world of, like, being aligned with government that's going to enact policies that will keep your business profitable and keep other companies from competing with you. But where it works from, like, you know, a mind control perspective is that things that would be priced out of the market seem to be highly popular. Like, for example, because like even these socialist kids, like, people can't do things for free indefinitely. Right. And when like they're even illusion, like, you
know what?
Yeah.
Did you see Ryan Long's sketch about sponsors of right wing?
It was great. Yeah, it was absolutely great.
It made me realize this is how ubiquitous it is, because I have sponsors on this, and this, me and Kyle, we sell a blowjob machine with pussies.
Hell yeah, auto blow.
I think it's a more noble thing than having a Raytheon ad, you know?
Right.
A blowjob machine. Anyway, fucking Jimmy Dore, who gets called a grifter that I write for, I didn't even think about that. He doesn't have any sponsors. He's entirely his audience, and he sells some t-shirts. You know how crazy that is to not have sponsors? I was like, oh wait, you don't have any? Like, that's such a ubiquitous thing that you got to be a NASCAR car to fucking live, that you don't even think, like, CNN doesn't even think about the fact that Pfizer, when they're spouting all this shit, alarmist shit, they proudly go, sponsored by Pfizer. Okay, when Brian Williams,
people aren't awake to it. That's what's wild.
Because we made a sketch about Harry and Meghan's Oprah thing, you know, and one of the things I put in, because I was watching, there was tweets from Europe where people, because they were watching the interview with Oprah, and all these tweets were like, why do you guys have drug advertisements on TV? And I forgot. That's crazy. That happened when I was in high school. They made that legal. Why the fuck? Dan Adam used to have a joke about, like, why are you telling me?
His joke is so good.
Yeah,
do you remember that? His joke is so good.
Yeah, like, I can't help you. Like, what about Prilosec? Oh, did they say, the commercial say how much to prescribe? Why the fuck would you be giving a prescription drug advertised to me? What on earth would that be for? And if you look it up, nobody can tell you why. Everybody's like, yeah, no, it's not a good idea, but we're going to have it. Why? Because the shit's completely captured. And all the fighting about, you lost your freedoms 20 fucking years ago, just so everybody knows. I don't know why everybody doesn't get it. I mean, I didn't get it, but now I'm like, I remember the Patriot Act. We never got rid of it. There's no fucking habeas corpus. Oh, can China kidnap you and not tell you? We can do that. Oh, all these bad countries that we have to go fight. Like, Saddam Hussein has rape rooms. Remember that? That's what they said when in the Bush war. when people go, I don't think we should go to Iraq. Like, but he has rape rooms. Oh my God, rape rooms? Like our prisons? What are you talking about? It's eternal, dude. They they push this nonsense forever, and you just like I don't know, you get numb to it. You get numb to it. You get like Kyle Rittenhouse. He crossed state lines. How many times you hear he crossed state lines? I thought when people mock that, I thought they were just being dicks. What they meant is he brought a gun illegally across state lines, and you're just cutting their argument short to be funny. And no, they just said he crossed state lines as if it was a crime. Why? Why do that? Because you already know he had a gun and you don't approve of that. And he crossed state lines, so you, the viewer, can mush that together into how I did. Oh, he must have brought an illegal gun. Because they couldn't possibly say crossing state lines is a crime. That's on purpose. That shit's on fucking purpose. It's not like somebody's handing them the shit to read, like Anchorman, and they're saying it's and that's like scary. I don't know, dude. I guess that's my tinfoil hat thing, but I don't think that's wrong. I think that thing you said sounds exactly right about what is all this shit that nobody like what is this? And it's all this like weird psyops for weird we got to compete with Russia. I'm not clear on why I care about Russia currently. Why would I care about Russia?
Oh, I wouldn't be concerned about Russia. Who gives a shit about Russia? They just it's the military industrial complex where they want to build up NATO. They might even want another war. They want to like pretend like we're still at odds with other people, and so we need a strong military presence, and that perhaps like we need to throw them out of Syria. It's this idea that like Russia, if America's not out there and aggressively policing the world or at war with people and kicking people over to show people that we're aggressive, then more evil people are going to show up and just start conquering countries. And it's this vision of the world where it's like a risk board.
You mean like us? Well, this is the thing I realize.
Yeah.
America's the monster. Like whatever Israel does that's shitty, which by the way is a lot, but everybody, if you talk to somebody Israeli, they'll be like, no, they're nothing. But you can't police people you hate and not be shitty to them. That's not a real thing. It's what America does. America can't even criticize it. America's the same fucking evil. Yes. Sorry to tell everybody. It should be obvious to everyone now, and I think it is. I think a bunch of right-wing people that wouldn't have known this shit years ago are noticing it. Because now the fucking matrix upkeep is so bad that, I'm not fooled enough. Like, I just wanted to be fooled enough. Like I used to be fooled enough. And you like can't go back. Like you can't, once you see it, you can't unsee it, as the saying goes, like you're like, oh. And that's why I'll listen to a fucking dyed-in-the-wool commie now. The Intercept, not the Intercept, the fucking Gray Zone. All that shit you just said, that's all stuff I learned from very far left, supposedly fringe group. But when I actually talked to the people, they were very objectively, just had principles and reported things honestly and didn't cover up to like help the team, because that's what you're supposed to do. That's the corporate influence is don't talk bad about Biden or point out that he's a fucking drooling imbecile, because you could be helping Trump. You could be helping the enemy. You could be fomenting that stuff you said. I don't know if it's true. I don't care. You could be don't you realize everybody's stupid and you could be stumbling them from the one true faith? The greatest crime? That's Jehovah's Witness told me. You can't stumble your brother. That's worse than anything, is hurting someone else's faith with your shitty questions.
Yeah, that's where you got to twist the higher ideal is let's get true information out, and if everyone's more informed, we'll come to better conclusions, versus the Jehovah's faith and this thing, which is, no, we just need Biden there. No, we just need everyone to be concerned with global warming. Have you seen them
brush that away, that concern? I love the arrogant, what you just said is right. Yeah. Put the truth out. The truth is the fucking truth. No, you can't do that. That's a fallacy. Yeah, that's a fallacy, because it's dangerous for who? It's dangerous for the motherfuckers that are lying. That's who it's fucking dangerous for. So that as soon as somebody has that where they want to cover up for their team, that's why Sarah got jumped by her own team, who I like. Sarah Silverman, I like her a lot. Joy, just read it next time. Don't cover for your team, Sarah. Your team's evil. You think you're on the lesser of two evil sides of history. That's the highest we can aspire to be on the lesser of two evil sides of history and not the evil side of history. Anyway. All right, you guys need to promote?
The Run Your Mouth end of year Misinformation Spectacular. I think people listening to the show would like it quite a bit. It's jokes on I really dismantle all the COVID lies. I get ahead of global warming because that's going to be a big story next year. I actually talk about the Nestle Supreme Court case and cover a bunch of stuff no one else did. So go check it out. There's a lot of jokes. It's pretty funny.
All right, cool, man. Thanks a lot for doing the show, dude. I appreciate it. Say hi to Dave for me.
Absolutely, man. This was a ton of fun. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, anytime, brother. All right, that's our show. Go to kurtmetzgercomedy.com to see my. I got dates like I'm all over the place this coming next few months, but I'm in Kenosha next.
Ooh,
January
spicy.
at the Kenosha Comedy Club, 28th and 29th. I'm doing a benefit for the Rittenhouse boy. No, I'm joking.
That'd be cool if you were, dude. I'd be all
You
behind
don't need a
that.
benefit. He's doing just fine. Kid's knee deep in pussy. Do you know what my joke is about it? I've been doing a
Oh,
whole
please.
thing about
I'd love to hear this.
But I was doing that stupid OJ thing that I tweeted, but also I'm like, let's face what this trial was about. Like why? Like the kid just has like a round, annoying face. And it wasn't racial at all. It's like he has like a fat face that you kind of want to hit with a skateboard when you see it. Let's face it.
And so
And
the,
that's the
pro-
bias.
the prosecution was just like bully. They're like, we can
Dude,
get this guy.
The bias is so clearly about his fucking face.
Right.
Like, look how he cries. That's not how humans are like, oh, I want to hit him with a skateboard. Like, he probably needs a gun because he's going to be attacked out of random simply for his face.
You know, there's
But,
stats that ugly people are more likely to be found
Yes.
guilty.
Yes.
Yeah, it's wild.
It's amazing he got justice because the other guy was better looking than him. Technically, like he was. Like,
Doug
Gage
Stanhope had a
Gross-
great joke a while back where
Yeah.
it was like the ugly people need a union. You ever hear that joke?
Yeah, no, it's great.
Yeah, and he's so pinned it like before all of like this before all of this black white all this shit kind of became more of a privilege. He nailed it so early that the real privilege is attractive unattractive.
Well, the
It's really
privilege, yeah.
It's wealth, it's wealth, looks, and intelligence. And there's really no reason for anyone to come in and try and enact policy. But like, if you're really going to rank privilege, like if you're Obama's daughter, you're not any less privileged than some poor white person.
But why do you think they introduced this? There's two things, like the Frankfurt fucking people. You know that, did you ever see that when Call of Duty came out with like Reagan in it, that one, the Cold War?
No, I think I've been off the duties.
Well, I don't mean it, but there was a commercial, an ad that was running that showed that former KGB agent in the 80s describing how the communists infiltrate and demoralize a country, the Soviets.
Oh, and it's just what's happening now?
Right. It's a famous, now, I was watching I can't remember what the historian channel, but very interesting thing. The Soviets, what was happening now is not from the Soviet communists doing shit. They didn't really do the kind of shit like that there in Soviet Union, what goes on here. What we had here was the United States had those guys from the Frankfurt School, all the neo-Marxist critical theory guys. After the war, they needed to convince the Germans of their group responsibility for the Holocaust because they had an insurgent problem and they need a massive propaganda effort to, do whatever. And so those guys were who the CIA hired to help get Germans to be like, yes, we all did the Holocaust.
They just wanted to make them feel guilty.
Now, I don't know if that's necessarily bad because, maybe that's a huge thing, the Holocaust. But those guys then came and started doing it here in America. And that's where they developed it's not Marxism.
I asked you, in Germany, what did it accomplish? So getting everyone to like feel guilty, but like, was there some next thing that like, if you get people in this negative brain state, so then you can more easily, like, what's the next step?
Well, we needed to calm them down from doing insurgent shit right after the war is what the immediate goal was.
Because we didn't want them to, all right.
There was like the werewolf, there's all these crazy people still fighting. Like Iraq,
Right.
we had a whole, anytime you conquer, there's going to be an insurgency and all this. So it was that. And a bunch of people were like, I didn't know, I didn't do anything. It was like that, a bunch of people and I'm sure a bunch of people who fucking probably were oppressed by the Nazis because they didn't agree with it. And, I'm sure there's plenty of people like that, but it was like one of those fucking crimes. Everybody's like, no, you all nationally have to answer for this, right? It's some shit like that. I don't know the exact fairness of it. Doesn't bother me as much as the thing now is these are techniques that are perfected in wars. In fact, Israel is known as a great place where they do that's what they do in the Gaza. They experiment with these control things on people. In military application. It's not a secret. It's open. How do we control this fucking zone of terror or war or whatever? And then those techniques come home to the civilian market. So that's what that Abigail Thorne thing I showed in the beginning was. That group Valent practiced in Syria, spreading disinformation about what was going on. Then now they're back in the private sector. Oh, well, I have connections with the government. Prince Charles has some money to spend, and he wants to, the Royal Foundation wants to squelch people who say the shit you just said about COVID. Why don't we get to one of these cool kid figures the kids like on the bread tubes because they're not watching the CNNs or whatever the fuck. Then they pay them that money. And all of the shit that it's all comes home. All the vile shit that we've done in wars, they practice fucking techniques there, then they bring them home and they use them on us. And you can feel it, like, even if you think that's crazy, I'm not saying you think it's crazy, but you can feel it. You're like, what is this crazy shit? Like, who thinks this? And then you talk to people, none of them. Nobody. You know? And it could be as simple as, like, Greta Thunberg. I was joking about that because I don't have any feelings about Greta Thunberg. I never did.
I'd said some mean jokes about her in my think.
But I'm like, why would I care one way? Like, I've never met a person in real life who really felt strongly any way about Greta Thunberg in life. Now, online or on TV, you would think it was the biggest thing that's ever happened. But what the how is that news? This just in, a Swedish girl's upset. Boop, 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 boop. Oh, what a scoop. Why would that even be international news? And why do I give a shit if she yelled at some fucking UN people? Like, what does that do? It's pure emotional horseshit programming. And then you're like, they're saying it to you like, remember how you love this? You're like, I didn't care about that. Hey, remember how you want to be called Latinx now? And all this Hispanic, we don't like that. Well, great news, you're Latinx forever. Like, but we don't want to be called that. Latinx is what you are. All this top-down shit is that. I'm telling you, every last bit of it. And it's like now it's a business model, and it's going to be until we get like a collapse. Maybe all this inflation will make it collapse. It's like the real estate bubble, the woke FICA bubble that these corporations have, because they're all just putting up numbers and they're not showing real work. And there's right now, for some reason, because of tech, tech companies is better not to be profitable, so you get another round of funding.
Good point. Yes.
Well, some of them accidentally become profitable and they have to lie and say they're not profitable because it'll fuck with their profits.
That's crazy.
That's what the unchecked, and I don't blame capitalism because capitalism's there to be what it is. I blame the people that are supposed to be steering it or supposed to be like just making sure the rules are being obeyed. Just those people. But they've completely fallen to regulatory capture. That's the shit you just talked about, especially as a libertarian. It's good that you know that, because the FDA, listen to the book, you'll find out. The FDA, they're funded by the drug companies. Now, initially, it wasn't the worst idea on paper. It was the drug companies make obscene profits. They should have to fund the work it takes to know if they're selling us poison. They should have to chip in, contribute to it, okay? Because we're not going to, do something crazy like have the government taxes. So that grew into, very quickly, just paying off shit. The goal wasn't so bad, but it mutates because of the profit motive. The profit motive is it mutates shit. It just does. Comedy. I got a comedy because I love comedy. How many comedians do you know that fucking sold out comedy itself because they thought they were going to get a spot on like the garbage comedy that's made now, like the late nights with Jimmy Kimmel's? And how many comics do you know that parrot, where you're like, I thought you were a comic, and they parrot nonsense because they're like, are you crazy? What, do you not want to get paid? You must see it in New York. I mean, that's a ton of people that are like that.
The only thing you might take issue with this. I don't think the profit motive needs to be tied to having to create something of value. So if it's
a charity, I work for a charity that helps do whatever, and yeah, I take home a nice salary.
So what do you like? You're saying
I say that's corrupt. I won't donate to any charity where I know that people get paid to work there, like a salary they live off of. I'm not giving them money. You're already corrupt. You now have a financial interest in not solving the problem because it's how you fucking feed yourself. So BLM, for example, has a fucking monetary incentive not to make Black Lives Matter. That's what I'm talking about. Some things are profit motive. I want to make a thing that's a comedy when I do stand-up that people like, and then they pay for it because they like it, and it's worth it to them to pay for tickets to see it. That's an honest That's what most people think of as capitalism, by the way. They don't think of this crazy investor shit, which is kind of really what it is, because the people with capital investing it in stuff and then making money. So that's how it opens up the way for the shit I don't like of socialists, of like, well, even paying you for your time is exploitation. Yeah, you know?
What I'm saying, like, go with your comedy, because that's like a pretty pure example. So you spend a lot of time creating something, and people pay for it because it's of value to them, because, you know, it makes them laugh and they enjoy it. So you had to work hard. You have to give them something of value. If you're not good at comedy, people don't pay you for it, right? And so it's a pretty honest transaction.
It was. Now I can get a grant from the Jeffrey Katzenberg Foundation.
But so what I'm getting at is, I think where the government starts to distort that is that the grant or the money that goes to a Kimmel that won't go to someone else, that all of a sudden it does. All of a sudden, your woke comedy that's not funny, there's more outlets for it that will pay you for it.
It's a tax write-off. It's a tax write-off.
Right. So I'm saying all of that is what like distorts the profit motive in a negative way, but that's not the market. That's more government regulation.
Well,
so I'm saying,
yeah, sure. But once,
yes.
Okay, look, once a business gets big enough, it becomes government regulation.
Right,
so
but then,
the rules of YouTube are government regulation. The rules of all these things are government. They're that big.
That somewhat becomes the argument against government, is that government becomes the force by which you can start making money without providing value. I'm putting this in very simplistic terms. So,
that happens all the time. That's a real thing.
Right.
But now what I'm saying is we've transitioned to where corporations are now a force, where you don't have to make value. The value is just made up. It's crazy.
Right. But I'm saying, so even to add more layers to that, a lot of why that exists is the cheap money made by the Fed, and the fact that we don't have a market interest rate. And so there's so much money that flows to Wall Street, and it goes there. All right, it's the end of a show, but here's a
good example. Video games, Call of Duty, which I don't buy anymore because I'm whatever, I don't into it. They've been crap. Video games are a great microcosm because the biggest companies, EA, Activision, they all say, by the way, they all spout woke shit. They're all the worst, most, you know what loot boxes are?
I haven't played video games in a while.
Oh, well, it's interesting. So they find new ways to monetize the games because they're like, we're not getting the value. These games are really expensive to make, and $60, the price hasn't gone up on the games. It's not even fair. We got to raise it to $7. Well, what they've been doing is putting microtransactions. And once these companies found out how profitable a microtransaction is, now they make the games.
That's like paying the mod on a game, like on a gun for $1, like that kind of shit.
They're doing it with NFTs now. Ubisoft's putting NFTs. You'll have an NFT helmet for your guy that's extra expensive. It's just the serial number is different than the other helmets, and they'll sell it for real money. So what's happening now is the product, the product. They don't. John Madden and Call of Duty. They keep making World War II reskins, and they're garbage. And then they throw in like some woke shit to make it okay. Let's see, it's really good. It's like good for the environment. And then they put in, hey, it's $5 American for a fucking a fake shirt in this game. And then the game, they rig it so, like a casino. The loot boxes, because countries outlaw this shit because it's straight up gambling for children. EA's, Electronic Arts, the biggest scumbags in the world, they go, no, these are, they call it surprise mechanics. And
by the way, G-Mike hates me right now because you were about to rap. He could finally take a piss, and then I ramped it back up.
But you see what I'm saying? That's not the government. The government's not interfering to stop what they're doing. That's a company figuring out where the real money is, and suddenly the business they say they're in, which is making games, they're not in. We're in the business of selling microtransactions now. We've efficiently figured where the money is. We don't give a fuck about the thing we're pretending to you that we are making. That's not the government. That's a complete lack of government. The government is just as shitty of a thing. My point is there needs to be checks and balances. You can't trust that just industry. The profit motive leads to that. That's what it leads to. It's not that it's bad. You need to have some profit motive.
Right.
But following it to its logical conclusion, that's what you get. The same corporate gruel over and over again, less and less value, more taken away from you, the consumer. You, the consumer, being powerless.
In a free market, though, why do you think that, like, someone wouldn't eventually come in with a better option and compete? So, like, even
I'll tell you why. Would you like to know why? Because they've done a thing now where they purposely make sure smaller people can't compete. That's the benefit of a fucking monopoly. You can then rig the market to make sure so they've been doing things where they patent game mechanics. There was a cool game, Lord of the Rings, where the fucking what are they, the orcs or whatever, they would remember you and you'd have like an arch, and it was like this emergent. It was actually awesome. It's a thing that probably lots of games should do they can't.
Right.
There's patents on it. What they do is they try to make sure no one can compete. That's the first thing they do when they get big, is make sure no one can do that.
But
so you
don't
lose
you
the free
usually
market
need government to do that?
To do what?
In order to create laws by which other people can't compete.
Well, fine, but it's not like the government comes up with the idea for them. That's what I'm telling you is the motive itself. That's,
but what I'm saying is, alternatively, in an entirely free market, you have to provide value in order to make money. Now, the inclination of every individual.
I don't think you do. Value to who?
To a customer. Like you, when you create your comedy, the only way that anyone's paying you in a free market is if you're funny enough that they want to pay you.
Well, I'm a sucker. I do things the sucker way, which is what you're describing. But the real money.
No, so I'm saying the natural inclination of everyone, especially, the better players, is they want to figure out, because we're all lazy. So they want to figure out, well, how can I make money without working? And the answer is to introduce some level of force by which I don't have to compete, by which I don't have to make my product better. But that's very difficult to do without some sort of a government law or an interference to enact some level of force.
Well, I mean, wait, I don't know. That EA thing I said is the government was an absence of laws. It's the bottom line is.
But you said that I asked, why can't a new video game company come in and compete? Like,
why? The licensing and all the agreements. See Madden, for example, that's like a licensing agreement, and you're literally that's why they make, like, Disney makes shitty Star Warses that suck, because they own, like, what are you going to compete and make your own Star Wars? You're not allowed to.
You're not allowed to make a new Star Wars, but you can make a new space soap opera.
Sure.
Potentially, if people
who's going to make that? Who's going to make that? And who's going? Because they're going to collude to make sure.
I mean, there's other movies that come out that people like. It's not maybe.
I watch YouTube. Like I just watch YouTube.
Yeah, I don't even watch movies either. Yeah.
But like video game thing, the games that I would play or any of those, that's a tiny bit. What the business found was all the profitability is stealing money from people on cell phone games. That's the biggest slice of the pie. So the thing of quality or caring about it, that's always secondary. The pig doesn't care about the art of knocking the ball into the hole. The pig wants the fucking food. Just pick the ball up. Who cares about the fucking the art isn't for, like, I wish I knew business before I got into this, because everybody that's an artist is an idiot and doesn't understand these things about business. And the business people will act like, I'm not saying that it shouldn't be allowed profit motive, but people will act like it's a good in and of itself, which it is not. The good is coming from it's not. So the very idea of an invisible hand of the market is I would like a brain and something with morals to control the hands. I don't want just wandering hands. That's a dumb analogy.
I would just state it differently. The thing that is good is that it's, in order to get paid, you have to create something of value. You have to offer something of value.
What if I do one better? What if I invent something that has no value? What if I artificially create value by hoarding all the diamonds and then saying they're valuable? Does that suffice? Because it does. That's how it works too. You can also make up a thing that's not valuable, create a complete illusion around it, and get away with it for fucking years. You can also, I mean, there's so many options. The most people just think of, like, the doing a job and getting a fair wage. I mean, that's how people think. Or making a product somebody wants, and that's all they want to do. They don't want to make crap. But those people don't understand how the money people think. And when I say the money people, I don't mean the Jews.
I mean, if you do.
I mean, but like the money people think of, you must have met these people. I had a good friend that he sold domain names like real estate.
Right.
He could not give less of a fuck about it. He goes, yeah, I don't care jobs. That's what I do. I find ways to ship jobs out of America to India. Like, fuck these people.
He's very unabashed. Get employed.
He goes, I'm an international citizen. Once you're rich, you're an international citizen.
And he's helping poor people in India get jobs. That's pretty cool.
He doesn't give a fuck about them either. He cares about him. There's a guy I like.
And two people win. He wins by making more money, and some people in India win by getting a job. Sounds
I
like
would
he
say
solved
the
problem.
promises, those promises of jobs always end up the same way that there will be blood. The Daniel Plainview. It's always a big, that if you look up any how this shit works, that's why we have countries in debt. You can't conquer them anymore. That's why we have debt on us. You're not allowed to just go conquer a country. You go, hey, you have resources. You need schools and bridges, and we'll fund that, and you could give us some resources, and you could just pay us back. You'll make all the. So then the jobs are not, the people don't get the jobs there. They go to cronies. The fucking resources we already knew were way more valuable. We did it, so we were hoping that they wouldn't be able to pay back. We were hoping that, like a fucking gangster. That's what the IMF does. And then now I got
Confessions of an Economic Hitman, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's what the book was. That guy had a great description of it. And China, the difference between them and us is we're such assholes. We go kill them and tell them they got to change their government to. China goes, hey, just use our shit. We're not going to kill you. We don't give a fuck about what your politics are. Do whatever you want. And China still screws them. Don't get me wrong. They screw them. All they did was eliminate the vicious murder part that we like to do, because that's how fucking arrogant it is here. That's the truth. People go, yeah, America can go whatever country they want and just do whatever. That's the thing everybody has thought for many years, until probably just now.
All right. This was an absolute thrill. I appreciate having me on, and we can debate libertarianism some more. I'll come with more talking points.
Because I can't get right. Because I can't